welcome everybody to the Sunday show. Today we're going to be doing something that somebody had recommended or asked me to do, which is on A or B theory of time, and kind of talk a little bit about that in more of a philosophical rather than scientific perspective. So I've enlisted the help of Nicola here. I mean, this is something that I have looked into, but it's going to kind of go a little bit deep, more than I pretty much know about the topics. I know cursory level of understanding between A and B theory, reductionism, Platonism, and Neo-Lorentzian vice Minkowski. But I don't think that Dr. Kenny is going to be joining us. I've put out some emails to him. However, he hasn't got it back to me. So he's going to have to watch it afterwards. And we could do another hangout on it because this is probably going to be a very interesting and in-depth topic. I do want to keep it relatively short, down about 90 minutes, because in 90 minutes, Ozzy is going to be having a hangout on The Place with Dr. Jones. And that's going to be on Gnosticism. And Dr. Jones is going to argue, or at least kind of say that he thinks most people should be agnostic. Ozzy disagrees. I happen to agree with Ozzy on this one. I don't think people should be necessarily agnostic unless they have, an agnostic viewpoint, like myself. I'm agnostic, but that doesn't mean that I suggest that everybody be agnostic, right? I think people are just as fine being justified to believe that gods don't exist, or if they do believe that gods do exist. I think you'd be justified either way. So anyways, with that being said, let's kind of dive into the topic, because it is daylight savings time now. So we actually time traveled and we went backwards an hour in time. So everybody got an hour in sleep. Okay, not quite the way it works, but it's going to be good enough for us. I'm actually enjoying a nice hot cup of coffee with some sweet and low honey and a little bit of whiskey for my voice. So hopefully that won't give out on me today like I did yesterday. Not having a rum and coke night. I like the taste of a little whiskey in my coffee. It's actually good. So let's kind of dive right into this. Nicola, we've had a conversation on this kind of before with our favorite, what's the word for him, troll, Darwin's, because Darwin's didn't seem to understand the difference between A and B. So you want to give a brief rundown of how you think the difference between tense and tenseless forms of A theory and B theory exist, and then I'll kind of take it from there.
That is very difficult to express in ordinary language, because it isn't really limited to A and B theory. There are basically views of time where you have an actual state of affairs that changes into something else, and that this is a genuine change that occurs. And we would classify all those as being atheist views. And it doesn't matter if it's a strict presentist view, which says that only the present exists, or if it's the growing future, which says that the past exists and the present exists, but the future hasn't occurred yet and doesn't exist.
Now, there are some views that obviously future and past exist coextensively with us.
One example of that would be the moving spotlight theory, which would say that the future and the past both exist, but that there is a particular moment which we could say is illuminated, similar to an actor moving on a stage being followed by the spotlight. It's just that at that moment, the present is somehow more real than the future and the past, but that the future and the past both exist set in stone. That
the people are saying they're buffering. I've actually lowered the stream quite a bit. I think. I'm not getting any dropouts, so there shouldn't be any buffering. So I wonder if it's just individual people. But let me see. No, should be fine.
I don't know, but limiting it to just A theory and B theory is kind of difficult. But there are some kind of distinguishing factors that you could, which is that atheists think that time does genuinely pass. Things do actually progress forward. And there is a fact of the matter where you can say, that doesn't exist anymore. This exists now, and that's yet to come. Whereas a B theorist will say, now and then are really indexical terms. They really note a kind of relationship, kind of like here and there do. There isn't an objective here and there isn't an objective there. It just notes to whatever we're referring to.
Yeah, I like that you say it's indexal, because it is an index, because with the B theory of time, you're relating it towards something. You're saying yesterday from today. You're saying as of a date, given a specific date. There is on the A theory of time, uh, 2 days doesn't mean anything. In the V theory of time is kind of like a contiguous form where future and the past and the present all exist simultaneously, what's called simultaneity, or all simultaneously. Yet we only exist. We're experiencing just one slice of that. So people would liken it to a DVD where you have a whole movie. We're watching it frame by frame, and the whole appearance of the illusion of time. People have said, "Why?" Somebody asked me today, "Why is time illusionary?" Well, the reason time is illusionary is because if time froze, okay, if there was no time going on whatsoever, and there's two ways to look at time. There's the
passage of time.
The passage of time. We usually do look at it as I've described yesterday, different entropic states from lower to higher as the passage of time. But in Galilean type space, which is Newtonian physics, the passage of time is really related to difference of movement or change of something from one state to another state, right? If you move across space time, you're going to have a different location in that space time. You're going to be moving in some direction away from something else. So it's relative to something else. If there was no movement in the universe, if everything was constant, where there's no change whatsoever, would time still pass? Would it appear to pass? How do we call that to be time if there's nothing changing in the universe, entropy or anything else? So if nothing's changing and it's in that state where there's no change going on, then the Platonists would say that that's a real time, that there's something meta where there is a passage of something in what's called a time container that's going on, but we're not experiencing it, right? So it's, again, an illusionary thing. There's no movement, there's no change, but somehow there's this absolute reference of time that is still going on. I don't believe that. I accept more the reductionism approach, where there is no ability to freeze time. There is no time slices like that. It's contiguous, but we can't just stop time. And I like the idea that time is such that present, future, and past are concrete. They exist in simultaneity. I think with general relativity, or special relativity, that's kind of a must. That's why I don't particularly accept a theory of time, because special relativity kind of shits all over it, because the Neo-Lorentzian model looks at it and says, okay, I have three dimensions in space, but now I'm at a fourth element, the time element, right? While in the Minkowski version, these things are one entity. Space-time is one entity, right? And I think that's kind of how we look at relativity. Space-time is interwoven with each other. And so when you have a physical location in the universe, you're literally mapping it to the space-time coordinate, not to three spatial dimensions and then adding that temporal. Does that kind of make sense?
Well, what the problem is with all of the atheist views that kind of take like a Neo-Lorentzian approach was that Einstein's special relativity, just from a mathematical standpoint, showed that adding that additional dimension was completely unnecessary. And not only was it unnecessary, but it was also scientifically unfalsifiable. So you would just go with the more parsimonious model under that view.
Well, that's another reason why I don't accept the Neo-Lorentzian with the aether, right? Because the aether theory is not parsimonious to me. We don't need aether theory. And I know a lot of these flat earthers like the aether theory, but they don't particularly have any evidence for aether. Matter of fact, Airy's failure, which was an experiment done by trying to detect using water and a telescope, if there's any change in aberration because of a moving either orthogonal, meaning perpendicular, or parallel with the aether field. We didn't notice any change. It was a failure. There was no evidence of this aether existing. So therefore, to me, it's not parsimonious to have aether, right? So the whole Neo-Lorentzian aether at a time, I think, has pretty well gone by the wayside, especially in physics, because almost every physicist I know is B theory at a time. It's counterintuitive if you think about it.
Well, in physics, it doesn't really matter what your philosophy of time is, because it doesn't matter if you plug in, like if you have an A theorist view, a B theorist view, moving spotlight, or growing past view, you're going to come out with the same conclusions time and time again for all those views.
And as DGH Dr. Hayes points out, yeah, you don't have to be a Lorentzian to be an atheist. There's different types of atheists, but Neo-Lorentzian would fall under an atheist. But there's many different subcategories of atheists, many different categories of B-theist, as Nikolai was pointing out. I mean, we can get into fatalism, we can get into what is it, persistence.
We're not going to get into fatalism.
You know what's funny? You want to hear something really odd? My roommate just asked me about fatalism this morning. Talk about synchronicity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were talking about something, and he had his books there, and one of his books was it was called Metaphysics, Contemporary Essays on Aristotelian Metaphysics. And he happened to ask me something about it on fatalism, and I actually kind of just told him, well, as far as I know about fatalism, is that you have a bunch of propositions, and you collect all the ones that are true. That means that future propositions that are true must occur. Therefore, the universe is pretty much predetermined.
It's everything is predetermined to the point where you couldn't have any real or even conceivable notion of free will.
Right. Yeah. Totally eliminates free will. Calvinists tend to find
that is typically a problem that B theorists suffer from.
Well, you know what's funny? You watched the hangout I had yesterday with Hyper Calvinist, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Regrettably.
Yeah. But somebody had pointed out to me this morning that they said, you did really well, but you would have owned him if you would have got him on this point. And I was not aware of this. I am now. Darwin's Greatest Hits didn't tell me. But did you know that Aristotle actually argued in one of his manuscripts, one of his writings, against the law of excluded middle, based upon this very thing? Future propositions. Future propositions don't have a true or false value because they have not occurred yet.
Yep.
Therefore, they don't subscribe to the law of excluded middle. And since the P neither has true or false, not P neither has true or false. And since the LEM states that for every P, right, there is either a true or false value assigned to it, it doesn't apply. So in that particular case, the LEM fails. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize future propositions would be like that. But that definitely leads into fatalism.
Is that the res potentia? Is that Aristotle that is talking about?
There is potentiality and actuality, but
potential things in the future.
Well, they're indeterminate, right? Because future propositions are unknown. You don't know if they have a true or false value. So every proposition has to have a true or false value, but the future propositions don't have one. Either true or not true.
To clarify, not propositions about the future. Propositions that would be made in the future.
Propositions that would be made in the future, correct. Okay. Better way to state it, yeah.
So at some point within like the next week, someone will say, today is X day. That'll be true or false.
Yeah. Yeah, not a proposition about the future, right. There's a difference there. I should clarify that. If somebody makes a proposition in sometime in the future, would that proposition have a true or false value? It's not evaluated. It's neither true or false. It's really hard to wrap your head around it, isn't it? About these conditionals. I'm used to like simplicitors, where you don't have any conditions, right? I like things nice and easy. When you start adding all these conditions, it's just, what are they called? Modes. Yeah, possible. Was it possible? Actual, conditional. The modal stuff just throws me for a loop. Hey, Kenny, this was your topic. Welcome.
How you doing?
Good. You're going to jump right in and talk about B theory of time, or?
Well, I just threw that stuff out there because I'm fascinated with the concept of time travel, and I know in a presentist milieu, you wouldn't at all subscribe to the ability to travel backward in time, or but forward. With the B theory of time, what's that?
Well, I would think for presentist,
with the strict presentist view, you could not travel to the future or the past
because they don't exist.
Yeah.
But I think relativity kind of puts a crap all of that.
Yeah, I think while I lean toward a B theory of time, I don't like to be nailed down to either view. I think there's probably got to be a better synthesis of the best of those two views. So that's kind of where I'm, heading. I'm certainly haven't studied this exhaustively. I have read a lot of William Lane Craig's stuff on it, and I've got a couple books.
He accepts ether theory. Let's put it that way.
What's that?
He accepts the ether theory.
Yeah, he actually grounds a kind of absolute time in
the perception of God.
In reference to the microwave background radiation.
Yeah, I've heard that one too. Yeah, I've actually heard that people have used the CMB to try to kind of say that Neo-Lorentzian model is true. I don't quite grasp their reasoning on that.
They're taking William's argument of time seems to be moving in a particular direction. So we have an arrow of time where things are moving from a particular entropic state to another entropic state. It's moving there linearly. And so if it must have a direction, there must be a genuine change. If there must be a genuine change, then A theory is true.
Yeah, but I mean, as it relates to the CMB, right? Okay, we know by now, because we've talked about this before, that the cosmic microwave background radiation is not completely isotropic. There's anisotropies that exist. There are minor differences on the temperature fluctuations, and also there's a difference between, if you look one way, for example, the fine structure constant might be one way, higher one direction than it is the other direction. That might affect the CMB. But because there's some kind of discrepancies in the CMB being not isotropic, then people have actually related that to an aether drift, it's called. But I don't think that's relating to Lorentzian aether, but I could be wrong on that. I haven't looked at that in a while. But if you're familiar with that, I might be able to refresh my memory on it. Why is this still
the only thing I'm aware of is that there seems to be a preferred direction. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, but that's not really
with the universe.
It's not really the case. What it is there's certain poles, I think it's the octopole, that appears to have a line that goes directly through like the universe. It kind of points in a general direction. So it seems to favor one particular way, and it's not pointing to us. It's actually about, I think if I remember, 10 degrees off the elliptical plane. But again, all that shows is that the universe may not be as isotropic as we thought and homogeneous as we thought, because there might have been early parts of just after the Big Bang where the homogeny kind of wasn't as homogeneous as we thought it was, and these led to these anisotropies. But that doesn't really affect the time aspect, right?
Right. I've actually heard that there's a possibility that the universe could be rotating. And in that sense, it would make time travel possible. I love all these crazy theories that are put out there by different people.
The universe would be rotating.
Relative to what?
Yeah, well, of course, it couldn't be relative to anything, but that...
No, that actually makes sense.
Well, I've heard of time travel where there's a type of time travel that Paul Davies talked about one time, where if you could rotate a black hole around the universe, move it around, you could actually time travel. But you'd have to be able to physically move a black hole around the universe. I don't know how that would work, though.
To harness the power of a black hole is certainly outside our technological capabilities.
There is an idea of a situational doppelganger that you could possibly have on the other side of the universe. Like completely opposite of where we are physically located. It's just you'll never be able to see it given the distance and the amount of time it would take you to travel or to even view it. But in that moment, that individual could be doing everything that you are exactly doing. So if you could somehow manage to rotate the universe, I don't know, in like some Futurama sort of way, where the Planet Express ship actually turns the universe around it when it moves as opposed to it moving, you could actually travel to past events and visit past doppelgangers.
There's actually a huge caveat with what you just said, though. That has been promoted, but that actually leads to an infinite regress, because you exist, yes. And then another person exists, and then another person, and there's literally an infinite amount of you, an infinite amount of universes, doing infinite amount of things.
Right.
Potentially. There's nothing really wrong with that.
Well, no, mathematically that's what it shows. A matter of fact,
Yeah.
it was Singy Banana did a wonderful video on this years ago.
Now, how does it factor in that there can only be what do they say, 10 to the 500 possible multiverses or something to that effect?
That's multiverses. That's there's a distinction between outside of our observable universe and outside of our universe entirety. The multiverse is literally outside of our entire universe. The multiverses are different things, and as Susskind points out in his book, and I don't remember the reasoning for it. You're right. The threshold he got as an upper bound for whatever reason was 10 to the 500th power.
Yeah. Now a level 1 multiverse allows multiple doppelgangers. I forget the measurement, but about every 10 to the 90 miles or something.
There is by Max Tegmark, I think he made, I don't know if the calculations are correct, but he made the statement like, if you would be able to travel 10 to the power of 115, like an incredible big number, Hubble spheres away from us, you would statistically be in the same universe as you are right now. So everything would be the
I've
same.
heard that as well, right?
Because the freedom of the degrees of freedom in our Hubble space is limited. So technically, if you make enough Hubble spaces, eventually 2 of them will be exactly the same.
And that's hard to wrap your head around, though. The amount of information that would be, and the size we're talking about.
And what's interesting is he's making the argument like, well, if we have the many worlds interpretation, that would spark many different universes, and we have these level 1 multiverses. He's trying to connect these two. The ones are level 1 multiverses, and the other one are level 3 multiverses. And he says, well, if they are not distinguishable from one another, they could be the same.
Well, some of them would probably problematically be identical, indistinguishable even. But I gotta get some more coffee. But correct me if I'm wrong, Nick. Like, didn't Darwin's deity say he was a presentist?
Oh, he doesn't know what the fuck he is.
No, he really doesn't. I remember asking about this.
The discussion that he had with Joe Somseed and myself was on metaphysics of time, and he started arguing for a genuine passage of time, that the past didn't exist, the future doesn't exist yet, so a strict presentist view. There is a privileged frame of reference for the passage of time, and that was God's, and all events are actual from the perspective of God.
That's a contradiction.
Yeah. So B theory is false because ultimately, because there's a privileged perspective of time, and that privileged perspective of time was a B theorist view.
Yeah, because I didn't remember he was arguing presentism or eternalism, or there's something else that's called. You ever heard of the growing universe theory?
Yeah, that's what I said. Growing past.
Yeah. Okay. So that, and I can understand the growing universe theory. Basically, all that's saying is that in the presentist view, everything that is in the past does exist. I mean, it still exists today. They're still present today, even though they're not physically here. They're still considered to be.
Well, they are here in a sense. It's just
in a sense,
you can't perceive them.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. You don't perceive them, but they do exist. And then in the in the growing universe theory, the future basically is just an ever increasing amount of objects being introduced into our.
The future is open, essentially, objects. Is what it is.
Yeah, and I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. I just can't see, how these objects are present, right, when they exist in the past, conceptually present. But that's what they would say. They would say that they still exist with us. We just can't physically interact with them or see them or anything like that.
Yeah, well, can you physically interact with Australia at the moment?
No, but I see. That's the that's what's weird because Australia's, and I don't mean this because of time zones, but because of its location relative to everything else, it's a different time, and it's obviously not notable. But when you're at different locations in space, you have different times for each location. That's different, right?
Yeah, and you just extend from there. That's why you can't interact with dinosaurs. They're just at a different location in a different time and space.
Yeah, that's the way the presentist would look at it.
Well, that's the way that the person who assumes the growing past would look at it. The presentist would say dinosaurs don't exist. They've never existed.
No, the presentist would. Well, wait, hang on. The presentist would say
there's no fact to make the statement dinosaurs existed true.
Oh, there's no there's no truth maker.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is another thing we can get into one of these days. Truth making, I have a hard time wrapping my head around what actually makes a good truth maker for a proposition to be true. That's a hell of an interesting subject.
Well, I'm a fun person to talk about that because I'm a deflationist. So
you're the deflation theory of truth?
Yeah, a brand of it.
Okay. See, I couldn't wrap my head around deflationism. I mean, there's deflationism, coherentism. What's the other one?
There's a series of redundancy theories, and deflationism falls under one of the redundancy theories. There's correspondence, coherentism. What is the other one? Pragmatist theories of truth.
That's why I fall into pragmatism because it's just easiest for me to understand. Honestly, I don't understand deflationary, and I don't understand the problem with finding out a truth maker for propositions. And I know there's many different types of things to say, okay, this is the truth maker for this particular proposition, but they all seem to have kind of problems when you kind of look into them. Anybody want to jump on that one real quick? It's kind of off the topic, but
no,
we're diving into really complex
Every
stuff.
theory and philosophy has its own problems.
People in the audience are going, what the hell is this hangout even about anymore? See, when Steve starts drinking, what happens?
What the fuck is this about? Yesterday, Steve is saying that contradictions could be true in some sense, and now
dinosaurs don't exist.
Truth makers.
Yeah, I have to read up on that again. Truth makers, and I remember reading about that, and was it Mariology?
No, it wouldn't be Mariology.
No, but I was reading about that as well. Was another topic about.
Mariology is the philosophy of entities. It's like what makes something an entity unto itself.
Right.
It's a fundamental particle in an entity or some configuration of them.
What's the parts of the whole?
Yeah. So ship of Theseus example.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Or divine simplicity.
Oh God.
There you go. Kenny tossed a football.
Yeah, Kenny can have fun with that off air.
Yeah, I love that.
Does God have individual parts, or is he whole?
No, he's uncomposed.
Uncomposed. So he has no parts of any kind.
No parts. Yeah, and everything is essential in God, which means it's part of his essence. So he doesn't have righteousness. He is righteousness. So he is his own essence, and his essence and existence are identical.
So he's essentially the prime metaphysical substance.
Yeah. But I don't know how you... See, I get the concept, but then I have to think about it going, how do you have an embodiment of these things that actually have an agency to them? Right?
You don't have an embodiment of it. It's all things stem from that one's...
But he is these things, right? He is benevolent. He is good.
He's not the embodiment of it. It's all things reflect that pureness of it.
Okay, when you say reflect, but the basically, how about this? If you had a cube and you shone a light on it, and it makes a square shadow, what we see as good or truth, are we just looking at it just like a two-dimensional image of a three-dimensional thing because we can't look at the very nature of God?
Right, we're perceiving God by his effects, and so there's never a sense that we can understand a simple being. He's incomprehensible. Yeah,
but it does seem weird. He's simple yet incomprehensible.
He's simple but incomprehensible, and we comprehend him enough to know that he's incomprehensible.
Yeah, I just have a hard time with that one though. He's so simple, but we can't comprehend it but we can comprehend that he's incomprehensible.
I have no issue with
that's
saying
the
that
idea,
something is simple such that we can't comprehend it, or that we could recognize something to be so simple that we can't comprehend it. And a prime example of that would be quantum physics.
Yeah, that's true.
Quantum physics, when you stop and think about it, when you think of all the quantum particles and what they make up, like you and I, as physical entities, must be more complicated than the quantum particles that make us up. We can comprehend each other, our behaviors, our beliefs, our attitudes, and the causal relationships that we can enter into, but we can't comprehend something as simple as the things that we're made of.
Yeah, that's what mereology would entail, right?
Yeah.
What
It's so simple that it actually becomes complicated for us.
Yeah, Darwin's Greatest Hits said he would like to talk to Dr. Rhodes on this one day. So
there's a lot of similarities in the way that we would understand some of these things about reality, quantum physics in an analogical sense, and in the way that we would, say, predicate things of God in an analogical sense. Now, what kind of coffee is Steve getting here? Is this his coffee from last night, or is this just regular coffee?
I don't know. It's whatever he drinks when he watches an episode of Lost. Because apparently that's what brought this whole shit up.
See, I really liked Lost until the last season.
I don't know anybody who liked Lost after the last season.
Yeah. My wife refuses to watch it again. But I'm the kind of person, I'll go back to a program like Lost and then binge watch it, every few years.
I'm a little offended that the thing that got you, which sparked this hangout, was that you were watching Lost as opposed to Doctor Who.
Yeah, actually,
or like Tom Cruise is a good day to,
or a good time travel show. I really liked that program Timeless that ran for a season. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to come out for a second season, but
it's not.
I really enjoyed it.
So is Lost a good time travel show? Because
no,
I never watched it.
No. The fifth season is good time travel, but not the sixth.
Okay.
No. It is an affront to everything intellectual. It just repels you. That's the only way to describe it.
Does it become confusing and making no sense?
It just becomes incoherent.
Incoherent. Okay.
Yeah,
I never watched it. It didn't really attract me somehow.
It becomes really silly in the sense that they wrapped it up with the idea of
purgatory,
kind of a purgatory, redemption, having an alternate future from what they experienced with the crash, but then that being in the sense that maybe they all died, maybe they didn't, but they all died eventually, and so in that sense, they were able to redeem their flaws via a purgatory type situation. It was really horrible.
So it has some religious symbolisms or themes in it.
It had a lot of Catholic symbolism, even from the beginning. I have books on Lost and philosophy, which is kind of interesting. And there was a lot of Catholic symbolism, especially in the main character, named Christian, which was Matthew Fox's father, and I forget his name right off the top of my head, but yeah, it was really good. Right, the season 6 started, and then they started to explain things. I thought they tried to explain things too fast as well. Just didn't really make a whole lot of sense there as they tried to explain things. They left all these great story, loose ends, and then when they try to tie everything together, I don't think they tied it together very well.
I'm sorry, what I miss? I had to go get some more whiskey.
We were talking about Lost and how they failed to tie the loose ends in a rational way.
I'm so glad I didn't start
season
that show.
6.
I would have been disappointed. I think I watched the pilot, but I would have been so utterly disappointed. Yeah, I know it buffers a little bit for some people. I don't know what else to do on it.
Yeah, the stream is frozen for me. But, I don't care.
It's only some people. Dragon,
Interesting.
They seem to be okay now. Can you guys hear me in the outside feed?
I can hear, but I don't know if that was directed to me.
We're
having problems with
the YouTube stream.
Yeah, it's YouTube. Let me see if I can tone it down anymore. Okay, let's see here.
It's all about.
You made it in. What happened? There's some kind of computer glitch?
No, it's just YouTube doesn't really like streaming this way sometimes.
Oh, you.
I'm gonna change my bit rate. Should fix it. Okay, that should. I changed it to 1400. So is that better on the outside feed? It'll catch up in about a minute.
Yeah, it works for me now.
Well, it shouldn't matter the internal. But.
No, I'm also having the YouTube open just to see the comment section, the live chat.
Okay, so it's better now. I took it way down, so okay. Okay, good to know. So 1400 is probably the best. Well, see, some people say yes, some people say no.
It's buffering again.
God damn. Buffer. Let me try one other thing. All right. Now if it's buffering, something should be seriously wrong. Wait for it to catch up. It should not be buffering right now. My CPU usage is like 53. My memory's 29. I got 14 for my bit rate. There's no way it should be buffering right now.
Looks good now for me.
I'll wait for the outside feed to catch up. Like a minute delay. Seems better. Okay, we'll go with that for right now.
Somebody said maybe Kenny's causing the lag.
That's probably true. You know, it's funny. Dragnaut mentioned, did you put plus 15 to stand him? But guess what I downloaded a couple days ago, Dragnaut? I went old school. I downloaded Oblivion. Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And of course, I got, I was playing like for a day and a half, and eventually I was like, oh god, I gotta cheat. I can't. Mm-hmm. Vanilla, yeah. There's no mods. It's not like the DLC. It's the original vanilla version of Oblivion. And
well, that might be an Olympic sport soon.
Oh my god, dude, it was so freaking hard. I was like, this is ridiculously hard because the way they did it, unlike Morrowind, Morrowind didn't scale as you leveled. Well, Oblivion does. So as you scale as you level, the mobs stays at the same difficulty. So even on the moderate, right, where you're not getting any reduction in your attack or on your defense. I mean, I was like sitting there going 10-minute battles. I was like, this is ridiculous. I want to shoot something twice and it die.
You played WoW back in the vanilla days, didn't you?
Yeah.
Don't you remember how long it took to kill a mob?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, that was a whole different game back then. I mean, God, how long did you spend in Molten Core? That was like you might as well give up like 8 hours of your life.
Well, I was a frost mage, so it didn't really take me very long.
Maybe you can play with Brett Keane, Steve. You guys
Yeah.
can be buddies. You guys can tromp through the forest.
There are some people that have vanilla servers, by the way. What happened was WoW, when they were upgraded their servers, they sold the old blades off, or gave them away. I think they sold them. And some people bought the blades, and they actually have private vanilla servers. WoW doesn't really care about those. You know, they don't. Technically, it's against EULA, but from what I've read on it, WoW doesn't really want to bother with it. It's not worth it. There's not that many people play the vanilla, and it's people that play the vanilla still play the original or the current version.
It's a lot of people have been asking for at BlizzCon legacy servers.
Yeah,
where you could play the original WoW pre-patches and stuff, so that you actually had an experience of how difficult it was to level something.
Do you remember original Naxxramas?
No, I wasn't one of the people who actually got to experience that.
I never got past the first boss, but I can tell you right now, the trash mobs were so hard that even after the first patch, or the first expansion, or the second, you still couldn't solo that thing. It was that hard. I don't know how people survived. I have no idea. I don't remember that far back. I remember being an Naxxramas vanilla.
I never got to complete Naxxramas, and I was actually a part of Method at the time.
Oh, Method. Yeah, I remember that guild.
Yeah.
No,
so you guys just mentioned.
What's that?
You guys just mentioned one thing that I could recognize, and that was just BlizzCon, since my son just got back from it. But everything else, I don't know what you're talking about.
What do you go to BlizzCon for?
Just hang out and roam around and stuff.
Did you time travel in it?
No, but that would have been cool.
Yeah,
that would have been really cool. So back on the time,
it made him feel really old afterwards.
Yeah, it did. So is anybody familiar with Ron Millett's work on time travel?
I am not.
Yes.
No.
Was there a yes out there at all?
I think I might be familiar with it.
Yeah, he's actually, I don't know all the technical stuff to this. I'm just a huge fan of time travel, and I read as many popular physics books that I can, as long as I don't get into the mathematics too heavily. But he's using lasers in a cone, or I should say a cylinder, and rotating the laser around this cone the cylinder, in order to create kind of a time warp situation.
Yeah, it's called frame dragging.
Yeah, and apparently he's having some experimental success in this area. And of course, his story in his book is that the reason why he even thought about this was because his dad died quite young from a heart attack, and he always wanted to go back and save his dad, warn his dad about some of the health risks and things like that. And when he entered into physics, he knew that he couldn't go straight in as a time travel person. So I think he started studying black holes, and then started working with an engineer and putting together
a time travel machine.
Yeah. And his idea is that time travel would be theoretically possible once the time machine is turned on. Once that...
Yeah, from that point forward.
Right.
Well, his idea is that time travel is possible, provided that you have enough gravitational force such that the actual drag of the object would produce a wave that would eventually overlap other waves and create a sort of closed circuit, so you could just kind of jump into the past.
That's actually what it's called. It's called a closed time loop. And the first, matter of fact, when I was in, I had to be 11th, maybe 12th grade. The local college had a free class, a free lecture on closed timeline theories and closed timelines, and I attended it. And I remember asking questions to the professor, kind of like people like Pew Review or Kauser. These are smart kids. Well, I mean, I felt like, hey, I'm in a group of people listening about black hole theories and closed timeline theories, and I actually got a legit question that it's fascinating. But one of the things I remember was Paul Davies suggested something similar. What he suggested was a infinitely long cylinder that's rotating, and that would cause frame drag. But the problem with that is there's no possibility of structural integrity for something to be, finitely long, more or less infinitely long, right? I mean, if you're spinning something near the speed of light, what's going to happen to the structural integrity of something? You're just going to have so much torque that it's just going to shear, right? There's no possible way that you can make something go the speed of light that's a cylinder that's very long, because of the differential in torque from one place to another as you apply the force is going to be immense. So you have limitations with the metallurgy, right, or I should say the material that you're making, right?
Yeah, certainly outside our technological abilities, it might even, be more feasible to try to hold open a wormhole.
Yeah, well, because the way with this one, you would need a perfect energy transmission system. You would have to have energy perfectly transmitted from where you're applying the torque all the way down the z-axis of the cylinder. That's obviously never going to happen. I mean, I think that would obviously violate numerous laws of physics, because there's no such thing as a perfectly elastic collision. You're never going to have a perfectly elastic transfer of energy.
No, the real question is, let's say we did get time travel figured out. Would the government really even let us all know about it?
The government did let us know once, but that was wiped out as the people went back in time and fixed that.
The great douche topolix of 17011.
You just don't remember it because the timeline has been changed.
Yes. And
what happened was they let us know about it.
They were trying to hide the flat Earth Trump conspiracy too, along with that.
And then Trump became president, and he scrapped the whole project.
The world is a.
Have you guys ever heard of that guy Anthony Pashago, who claims to have been in a time travel school with Barack Obama, and the guy's actually running for president in 2020, I think.
Sounds legit. And don't forget, Michelle Obama is a transsexual too, right?
That's a funny conspiracy.
Although you know what, she's got some manly features. Let's be realistic here. But I'll take Nicola. You're more of the resident
expert. That's just racist on your part, Steve.
No, you know what? Here's what's true. It's okay to be white. I found that out. I watched Sargon's video today, and they're right.
It is. You know what? We're good enough. We're strong enough, and darn people like us.
I do, and you know what? I have to. I'm the one buying sunscreen because unlike black doesn't crack, I crack.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we are contributing to the economics of the society. So, but no, that was a great video that Sargon Akkad had today. 4chan came up with this thing where they said, people should out post, and I wish I would have thought of this. This is so viral, that they posted signs that say it's okay to be white, and people were like, "That's racist." I'm like, that is not freaking racist. There's nothing racist about that. That doesn't even reach the level of what any rational person would consider to be racist. I mean,
you're assuming that most people who read the internet are rational.
It boggles my mind. And of course it's a troll move, don't get me wrong, but the whole point of 4chan and Sargon is to troll like that, to point out absurdities. And when people say, "Oh, that's causing division because you have a sign that says it's okay to be white," are you kidding me? That's just ridiculous. That's like if somebody says it's okay to be black, how is that racist? It's not.
Yeah, I didn't even know this. It was a question worth answering,
Yeah, but anyways, back to Michelle Obama. So is she a transsexual?
You mean Michael Obama?
Michael Obama. I'll take Nicola's word.
So ridiculous, man.
What do you think? Yay or nay?
Nay.
Okay, I believe you. No, I don't. Obviously, but I gotta tell you,
can transsexuals have children?
You gotta admit though that all the conspiracies, that one's funny. I mean, it's
that one is particularly funny because it started as a really, really poor joke from a retired comedian in like an ambush interview.
Yeah, what's her name?
There's one thing that gives it legs. There's one thing that gives it legs.
I don't know. She's like 90% plastic now.
Well, she's dead.
She's dead now.
But God damn.
She's not going to biodegrade for like another 500 years, though.
Yeah, right.
She's. Hey, that's eternalism. She's going to last forever. Joan Rivers.
Yeah, Joan Rivers. That was it. The one interesting thing is, though, if anyone can go and actually find a picture of Michelle Obama pregnant.
Well, that goes in the conspiracy theory. There isn't any, supposedly, right?
Yeah.
And that's what a good conspiracy theory should be like when it comes to something like that, right? Because you go, God damn, why isn't there any?
That gives it legs.
Now, I don't think she's a man. Okay, but still, if I was going to like really look into any conspiracy theory, I find that one to be kind of the most interesting because that one's well thought out. But
yeah, that one's probably the most
that's another good
absurd.
But it is well thought out. I think it's absurd too. But it's some people have been planning that one.
But it's not really absurd because actually no one's found any pictures of it, so it's interesting in that form. Just the fact that they're crappy parents.
And she's pretty manly looking.
She does have some shoulders.
Yeah, she's got girth.
She's got some muscular arms, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
she's probably got killer abs.
She's actually built like she's a swimmer. Because those big shoulders, a lot of swimmers are big shoulders. I actually think Michelle Obama's a lovely woman and extremely smart. I like her more than her husband.
Do you think she should have been president?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I took from that is Penny is gay, but not gay enough to go after Obama.
Well, Obama was supposed to be really gay.
Hey, everybody's a little bit gay. Videos they have on that, it's pretty funny. The one where they have the music going, like the fruity music, and Obama's doing his little dance, and it goes along with the music, and then they do like hip hop or rap, and Michelle Obama, the way she walks, looks more towards like hip hop rap. It's weird.
That's more interesting conspiracy is that Obama can't dance for shit, so he must be white.
Well, I mean, did you watch? I mean, I don't know how we're getting on politics, but did you watch Michelle Obama on Ellen DeGeneres' show when she was dancing? It looked like something was definitely bouncing around down there.
Yes, she has a big clitoris.
Yeah, that's possibly what it is. All right, I'm going to go get some more coffee. Yeah.
How about Hillary?
Hey, we're wondering what kind of coffee you're drinking there, Steve.
It's whiskey.
So this is how we go from the metaphysics of time to like the Obamas have giant clitorises.
Yeah, this is going way too far for me.
Yeah, this is going off topic from time travel, guys. It's already going to be demonetized.
Well, we're all going to erase our memory here soon, anyway. So
yeah, as soon as the time travelers come back, and So let me ask you. So, Nicola, we had this the other day with Tom. Tom seems to prefer the many worlds hypothesis over Copenhagen. Do you agree with him?
Okay.
Or and I'm not saying
I have
right or wrong.
No opinion when it comes to quantum physics.
You what?
Yeah.
I have scarcely few opinions when it comes to quantum physics. They're all equally empirically supported. That doesn't mean that you can't discount some of them for rational reasons, but the ones that remain, they're all found wanting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying there's right or wrong answer here. I mean, if we knew which version was best, I just think that the Copenhagen is more parsimonious.
Yeah, and I can't answer it, whether it is or not.
I think Tom would agree with that even. Tom, do you think that the Copenhagen interpretation is a little bit more parsimonious than the multi-world?
What is the Copenhagen interpretation?
That there requires an observer to actually collapse a wave function.
Yeah,
it's more detailed than that, actually.
The measurement.
Far more detailed. That's a dumbed down version of it. An observer doesn't mean conscious observer. It could mean observer in that sense really means it encounters interference.
Yeah, what it basically means is that Copenhagen there's nothing that exists until the waveform collapses. In other words, it's in a state where you just have a wave function, and then, as you said, it interacts with something, and that causes the wave function to collapse. Then you have the outcome. The many worlds hypothesis, basically both wave functions collapse, and then one goes into one universe and one goes into another universe.
Right. The Copenhagen is the idea that it's can splinter off into many different realities. One in which Elvis didn't die.
The multi-world hypothesis.
Right, but isn't it related anyway? No, because once that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the Copenhagen, the waveform that doesn't collapse, that timeline ends. You have
right.
Whenever wave function that didn't transpire, that doesn't exist any longer. But in the many worlds hypothesis, it does.
Right. Yeah, but the many worlds jumps off of that Copenhagen, and it relies on the Copenhagen interpretation. Is that right?
No, they're two different things.
No,
They're
they
incompatible with each other.
they
No, I
all
thought.
rely on the equations, and in the
I'll be
equations
right back.
there is a plus sign, and that that can be interpreted that happening. While when you make the measurement, the under the Copenhagen interpretation, the wave function collapses, and then you have a specific result. While from the equations itself, you have all results. So one of the interpretations, the Everett interpretation, says are true, but you experience only a certain branch of it, and the other reality is branching off from it, and you have two or several, lots of realities branching off. And the many worlds interpretation is from Hugh Everett, also sometimes called the Everett interpretation.
I always thought the Copenhagen and like a level 3 multiverse were related.
No, they are not. I guess
I'll have to throw the book away that I read that in.
Well, where they are related is, I guess, only in the point that what they have in common is that the measurement is special. For example, in the de Broglie-Bohm theory, the pilot wave theory, a measurement is not a special event. While under the Copenhagen interpretation, when you make the measurement, then you know the cat is dead or it is alive. So the measurement is important for the interpretation. Same in the many worlds interpretation. When you make the measurement, then it's branching off. So the measurement
Right.
So the measurement is, I guess, the only touching point between the two. There might be more, but I don't know right now.
I just got back. Yeah, people are talking about pilot wave theory again. Yeah, we discussed that yesterday. Crazy Jesse likes pilot wave theory.
I'm not really...
Pilot wave theory, isn't that more of a kind of a common sense approach to what's going on in quantum physics, as opposed to this kind of weird observer created reality in that sense?
Well, I mean, the problem is that you get into the difference between a hidden variable model and a non-hidden variable model. I always subscribe to the non-hidden variable models, and the de Broglie-Bohm model, or Bohemian physics, is a hidden variable model. And the Bell inequality states there's no hidden variable model that can count for all quantum mechanical states in a system, with some exceptions, such as pilot wave theory is an exception to that rule. It does satisfy the Bell inequality. But the thing is, when you have two entangled particles, you have to look at it two different ways. One, is there something communicated between one particle and the other particle? Is there a physical thing that goes in between them? Is it superluminal? Okay, and you have to determine, is there something in that system that exists that will allow communication between these two things superluminally, outside the sphere of locality, meaning that if you're in locality, you don't have to go faster than the speed of light, but if you're outside of it, then you have to obviously go faster than the speed of light. Is there something real that goes between them? Realism, or is it more of a something in a subspace or something like that? So that's what these things deal with. If there's information in the system prior to the event, would be a hidden variable model, meaning that we don't know what these variables are. It's like when is a certain isotope going to decay? Who the hell knows? It's not. We don't know, right? It's completely unpredictable. It's stochastic. We just don't know. But the hidden variable model would say, oh, there's something inside that system that we're not privy to, we can never possibly be privy to, that is determining when that particular atom decays. Okay, but we just can't know what that is. Nature won't allow us to. But the non-hidden variable model says no. There's no information whatsoever. It is completely spontaneity of when these things decay. That's the more current model that most people I've talked to utilize, is that there's just nothing in that information-wise. And it's hard to wrap your head around that because people want to think of a chain of causal events, right? Especially if you subscribe to the principle of sufficient reason. But quantum mechanics kind of takes a crap all over all that.
Yeah, in a lot of these issues, though, interpretive, in a sense, I think I would lean toward, there's something, something going on that we're just not privy to.
You would call that God.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that God is, causing these probabilities to take place, but I would just say that our ignorance of it, I'm just kind of leaving that open to there may be, something that we're not understanding that we could understand in a cause-effect situation,
Yeah, well, I'm almost kind of... Okay, Tom.
That's actually the basis of the hidden variable approach or assumption. Like, there is something in there that we just haven't figured out yet. Maybe we'll never be able to figure out. But there is the fact of the matter, some information in the particle that we can't see.
Right.
And then you have other. If you fix it at this point, then you have other things that follow. Like, then realism might not be true. Like,
and that's what he does.
Locality, you fix it at locality, but then other things follow, and then you have somewhere you have to bite the bullet.
And then that's the problem. I mean, where do you want to bite that bullet? I mean, do you want to give up locality? You want to give up realism? I've watched a video, and I think you sent it to me a while back, on some of the ways to get around that. And there was I don't remember her name, but she gave a brilliant lecture on local realism.
From the university in Vienna.
I don't remember where it was from, but it was quite interesting because
Yeah, this is
what's local realism.
What he's talking about, basically, local means that, again, within a sphere where you don't have to go superluminal, right? Spooky at a distance, Einstein called it. Something over a period of just separated with such a distance that nothing can travel communication wise between one particle and the other that's entangled.
The locality, I would say, is the concept that things don't interact with each other in a cause and effect relationship faster than the speed of light.
Right.
So
how can information, go from one particle to the other particle if you're not in the same region of influence that's within the speed of light? Because we know it does. We know that we know that information does. If you have one particle, no matter how far away from the other particle that has a entanglement, if you note the spin of one, you know the spin of the other. The other one will match the other one. It'll actually collapse the wave function, and it'll actually have the other opposite spin, no matter how far distance they are away from each other.
And this actually has been experimentally verified that is spooky action at a distance.
They just did one the other day. Well, I guess it's been a few months ago. They did it at like 13 miles. Doesn't sound like a lot, but to have entangled particles 13 miles away, you instantaneously can see that. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is just a trippy thing when it comes to reality.
They did that with the Large Hadron. Was that it?
Crazy.
Oh, I don't remember when they did it, but I was going to tell Kenny that I'm a scientific instrumentalist, and I know a lot of people that are scientific realists. And the difference being is that when you have a scientific theory, all I care about is that the scientific theory models reality enough for us to use it. Do I care that it actually is that way? Platonically speaking, I guess, in some kind of universal absolute terms. I don't really care metaphysically that way, because I don't think you could ever know. So for a scientific instrumentalist, I'm only interested as, hey, does relativity make predictions we can use? Right? But a scientific realist,
which kind of leads toward your pragmatism
Yes.
Outlook, which is
I like to
uniquely
have-
American.
Which is kind of, it's kind of funny because everything I talk about seems to have a coherentist type approach, but I'm a foundationalist.
Sure. Yeah.
I should be a coherentist if you think about it. I really should.
Well, I'm actually reading a book right now on epistemology that kind of merges those in a sense.
Is that Hack's book?
Foundherentism.
Yeah, foundationalism and coherentism.
Yeah, it's called foundherentism.
That would be Susan or Sharon Hack's book.
Yep. She's very. That was only she wrote that in 2009 or something.
Yeah, it's relatively recent.
Yeah.
Say that again, because that's not the book I'm reading. So I want to get
came
that
up with foundherentism, and that was back in the 2000s something.
Yeah. What's her name again?
Hack.
Susan Hack.
Susan or Sharon Hack.
Oh, Hack. Okay.
Like HAACK or something like that.
Oh, okay. Oh, a little bit like my favorite, Selma Hayek.
Kind of.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, I dated her for a while back in my imaginary
me
life.
Too. Yeah, me too.
Before the
I think I
time
was
travel
right before
episode, the great time travel episode of 2023.
Mine was
it's
Mila
Susan. By the way,
Jovovich.
it's Susan Hack, HAACK.
HAACK, Susan Hack.
Yeah, Evidence and Inquiry was her book.
Okay.
I think I changed my name.
Cool.
Oh, it was 1993 she wrote that. I thought it was earlier or later, but I guess it was 1993.
Evidence and Inquiry.
Yeah, it's called Evidence and Inquiry: towards Reconstruction and Epistemology. Everybody's been telling me I should go into foundherentism, but I can't wrap my hand around it yet. And it probably wouldn't make sense because I do have a coherentist approach, but I like my foundationalism. So,
Well, I can tell you, like the year and a half I've been here, I came into this thinking I was an atheist, and now I have no clue who I am.
you know what? My whole job since I've been on the internet is just to confuse people. It's
Right.
all I want to do. If you're more confused than when you started, I have done my job.
Local or this or that.
As a time
Every
traveling
philosophy
person-
course should come with the trigger warning that this course may fuck up your shit.
Well, I said this the other day, and I mean this. It's like, and I do read books. I do actually go into Google Books, and I like to read about these topics. And some of them are a little more complicated than others, and I kind of go, okay, I'll get back to that, as I learn more. And sometimes I'll be able to go back and go, okay, now I understand it. But I've noticed this. If you accept one thing, then something that you believed before changes.
Has to change. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Yep.
It sucks. I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Well,
That's your coherentist coming out. You want everything to.
Yeah, I think
to
I think
cohere.
Sokka's getting to me on
Yeah,
that because Sokka's a
A
coherentist.
coherentist doesn't actually have a big problem. So if he changes a belief that makes more sense than
They're
the
fine
one
with
he
that.
had before, that's all right. That's actually
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
wanted.
completely allowed to do that. If they have something that doesn't conform with prior beliefs, then they just toss out the prior beliefs or the newer one. They just say, okay, it doesn't match. For example, if I have a whole approach about naturalism and somebody presents things about supernaturalism, I could, as a coherentist, if I was one, just say, look I don't have any propositions of anything supernatural being true because that doesn't fit into my coherentist web of knowledge, right? I don't believe you can ever have knowledge of something that would be supernatural, even if you could properly define it. I think a coherentist could make an argument for that.
Okay, another dumb question. Coherentness. Is that being able to understand your logic or where you're coming from? Talk to me.
No, coherentism is where you start building up your belief set. In other words, like from my foundationalism, I have to start with axioms, right? But
It's that justification ultimately reduced down to the coherency of your worldview itself, not individual beliefs within your worldview.
So it's like the dissection of
How things fit together,
how you got this.
similar to a set of chainmail.
well,
They
gotta
all
be
have
careful.
to
There's two different
mutually
types of
strengthen
coherentism,
one
right?
another.
We're talking about the coherentist theory of truth, not justification.
Okay, then.
right?
Is there a difference?
Yeah, there's
There is.
Yeah, there's two types of coherentism, right? The foundationalism, or the foundationalism. Well, actually, I had it backwards. Wait, because we were talking about
theories of truth. Like a coherentist theory of truth would be a theory that says that statements are truth if they can be coherently assessed.
Yeah, as opposed to correspondence theory of truth, which states
correspondence theory would have to say that they would have to map to something with reality.
So how would
a deflationist would say that the whole idea of saying it is true that is a bit redundant.
So how would you have fictional propositions in a correspondence theory of truth?
It's one of the problems with the correspondence theory. Another issue with the correspondence theorist would be, I can say right now, there is no elephant in my room. And the thing that makes that true is the absence of an elephant. But the problem is there's no fact that is an absence.
Yeah, that would be the no truth maker that makes that proposition true either.
Yeah, but there's nothing that corresponds to the proposition that makes it false or makes it true.
And that's one of the hardest things that I was trying to wrap my head around when I was learning about different theories of truth, is that things that what we consider to be true really depends on which theory we subscribe to. It really does. There's no one. I don't think there's one universal truth. Now, obviously, a Christian, no offense to Kenny, obviously he would argue something else, Reformed Epistemology or something along those lines, and he would say that there is a universal truth, right? God would be a universal truth. But if you really look at it, truth seems to be kind of relative depending on what theory of truth you want to go by.
Well, I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
it seems to be that case. You don't see that seems to be that way.
It can seem to be that way until you consider finer points of it.
Oh, okay. Granted. Okay, I'll give you that. But what I was trying to say is, I wrapping my head around this initially. That's what it seemed to be, and I was just like, okay, truth is relative, but it's not. I do believe in absolute truth, by the way. So
what's interesting is it really, see, this is one thing, I disagree with my presuppositional Christian brothers quite a bit, but in one sense, if I do grant that worldview is an important issue that we have to look at. And so I would kind of take the idea that, I would add to my list of evidentialism the necessity of having a coherent worldview, and then being able to defend your worldview in the sense that it's, if it's logically consistent, if it's empirically adequate, and then if it's existentially relevant. And so I would gauge all things by that. So I don't really believe that there's
you lost your presuppositional brothers after point one there.
Right, I know. Yeah, I know.
That's good though.
Seriously, I know, right?
But
you'd think you'd want the issue for that though, but no, they don't.
But the issue, yeah, because it's crazy because they can't allow any outside information. For example, the rate project. I know, Steve, you're getting ready to interview one of the guys that is okay, great. But if there was ever something that I could win $1 million in a bet, was that they had already got their answer before they started any of their experiments with the rate project.
Oh yeah,
they already knew what they were going to come up with, and that's the biggest problem. Is nothing can fit into their worldview system that doesn't fit and cohere into their worldview system. And so that again is the weakness of the coherence theory of truth, because you can have a consistent worldview that it's logically consistent, but it may not be empirically adequate. There may not be those facts out there that are, I don't think they're totally brute facts, but there's certainly a lot of facts need to be interpreted within a worldview motif. And so in that sense, I do think that what you're seeing, Steve, that, that there's a lot of these things out there. I think they're interpretive issues that one worldview sees and interprets the facts in accordance with their worldview and not contrary with their worldview. But, you're always in need of testing your worldview. And I think it was John Carnell that came up with these 3 tests, how to test your worldview. But anyway, that's the biggest problem with presuppositionalism, is it doesn't allow anything that's, a priori. They consider things a priori, what is going to fit in, what isn't. And so they can't accept any information, like tree rings that, show a tree to be 10,000 years old. No, it's not true. Why? Well, it doesn't matter what the evidence is. We just know it's not true because it doesn't fit our
Well, they'll use dendrochronology as an example if they think that it conflicts with carbon dating.
Yeah, but here, I agree with what you just said, Kenny. But let me add on to that.
Sure.
What you said about rates. Not only are you right on that, and not only would you have won the bet, they explicitly say that in their rates project. They say, we believe, basic paraphrasing, we believe that the Earth is this amount of day old. This something cannot be otherwise, kind of thing. They say they are literally looking for data to fit their presupposition that the Earth is 7,000 years old, because it could be no other way to them.
Right.
And so when they looked at this data, I've talked to Humphreys. I think he's completely dishonest, but he's a nice guy to me. Although he was extremely paranoid at first, but he's been civil since we've been in communication.
But you got to think, they have created their own little community, their own little world, to where it doesn't matter if their stuff is true or not.
Well, that's the thing,
because in their
Tony.
eyes it's true, and they are just happy with being delusional. And
but that's the thing. They're not interested in the people that can refute them. That's not their target audience. Okay.
Yeah, no, it just
they're interested in keeping the masses believing their narrative. That's it. And that's why when I have these 2 physicists on, or one's a physicist and one's a geologist, to explain rates and explain the helium diffusion rates, you'll see that Humphreys and Baumgartner and Bergman and all the rest of them, they completely distorted and twisted this. I mean, they manipulated this data like you've never seen before.
Can I say one thing about philosophy?
Mm-hmm.
Just one thing. It's obviously not going to be profound or anything, but
Careful.
It's just, I think it's amazing what I've learned this last year and a half, which isn't much, but just seeing it. Imagine the originators, the theologians that first sat down and started sussing this out. Imagine how deep they went. It's almost like art. I mean, they went in so many different directions, and I don't know. It's just, maybe I smoke too much weed, but I find it really beautiful how much they have thought of an idea and then thought of every way to refute it, every way inspired from there. I don't know.
Something needs to be given credit is, the reality of that is, religion was a primary cause for that stuff. Back in the day when when you had people like Aquinas and stuff like that, pretty much everybody was religious. Everybody believed in God. It was the norm, right? It's just unfathomable to think that God didn't exist. It was something that was common, and these guys were trying to be deep thinkers, and they did a wonderful job. I mean, religion played a huge part in that, and I think that needs to be appreciated. We appreciate every so often.
They had to do that while faking being religious.
Yeah, not everything about religion in history was the Inquisitions and torment and things like that nature. There was a lot of positive things. In fact, universities came from religion.
Yeah.
Yes and no, but
stick with the yes and forget the no. I gotta get more coffee.
Yeah.
I'm just, what, this coffee is just going to turn into straight whiskey and water here at this moment. So,
is that one thing that was interesting, in that you should give credit to the old Christian philosophers for, is that they actually endeavored to make a case as opposed to just sitting in a smoke-filled room, sort of all agreeing with one another. They recognized that while we all agree that God exists, this is an idea that is not above reproach, even though you are also a believer. Like if I was a Christian and Kenny was sitting there having a dialectic with me, and I presented an argument, it would be my expectation that he would be as harsh and as brutal in his criticism as he possibly could. That was the expectation that they had.
Yeah, it's like a battle. It's a battle with
that's why if you've ever read the Summa Theologiae, which is Aquinas's last work. He never really finished it, but it was his greatest work. What is amazing is that he actually puts forth the best arguments against his position before he sets forth his position. So he'll start off, it seems as if, for example, God is not simple, et cetera, et cetera. And then he'll give arguments as to why that premise is true. And then he'll say, but I answer that. And then he'll give answers to each objection. And so the way in which, they made sure that they were really looking at their arguments for any type of weakness. Yeah, any kind of weakness. And I admire that. And that's what I don't like about my Christian brothers and sisters these days is they're not willing to allow their beliefs to be tested or questioned. And I don't think that makes for a very good example to the rest of the world. Christianity has been tested throughout the centuries and has stood strong. And, the medieval philosophers grounded education in general, but, they were the greatest scientists as well. The theist assumption is what grounded science. I know that might get some pushback, but the theist worldview is what gave rise and to the notion that science was even possible, that the world could be rational and rationally understood, which is actually what Einstein eventually said was that the most incomprehensive thing to him was that the universe is comprehensible. Given an atheistic point of view, the world should not be rational or comprehensible.
Yeah, but then he also said God doesn't throw dice. So
sure, right, yeah. No, he wasn't right in everything he said.
No.
But as a scientist and not as a theologian, he made that statement.
He said that as a scientist, is that was metaphoric, because he had a philosophical objection to quantum physics and its results.
Right.
Yeah, but
what I'm saying is that he made that.
Right. And Barney, what are you eating? Good Lord, Barney.
Hey, there's Barney.
But yeah, I think God does play dice with the universe. I mean, if God exists, I have a hard time with predetermination and stuff like that, and hard determination.
I remember who said it was God doesn't throw dice; he plays blackjack.
Yeah. Does he play strip poker?
So, it is calculable to a probabilistic level, but there's always that chance he could be wrong about the calculation.
Well, did you see Tommy Hall trying to interject on one of my posts today, and I again try to explain?
No, because Tommy Hall has me blocked for an obvious reason.
Is you gay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you would threaten him a little.
Did you make fun of him?
I give him a hate boner. Is what
and to me, you're bi because you do appreciate women.
I appreciate the aesthetic quality of it, no different than you would be able to say that, Brad Pitt is attractive.
Or yeah.
Brad Pitt's not attractive. Barney's attractive.
There you go, that too. Barney is attractive for a Croatian, which isn't saying that much.
Hey, I like Barney.
I just slighted an entire
awesome.
Nation. There we go.
I love Barney. Barney keeps it freaking real, man. I like that about him.
Praise me more.
Yeah.
There you go.
We're gonna start a new religion. By the way, let me finish what I was saying about Tommy first. Tommy doesn't understand what chance means. He doesn't understand stochastic probabilities. He doesn't. I know it's kind of redundant, but he doesn't know what chance means. He doesn't understand that. Look, if I throw a dice, as soon as the dice leave my hand, basically, even before then, you can argue mechanistically, these things are predetermined, right? I mean, whatever influences that forces is going to be on the die, that's going to be the way the die rolls. Okay, that doesn't mean it's not chance, because we don't have that knowledge. Knowledge is the key thing when it comes to those types of probabilities. As obviously with the Monty Hall problem is a perfect example. Knowledge, it changes the chance, right? And so, Barney, you breathe. What are you doing?
It's a Monty Hall. Is that like from the game show?
What, Tony?
The Monty Hall. Is that from the game show? What the hell is that?
Yeah, people are in their live chat are going, Barney, shut up. The Monty Hall.
That's what's happening. He's sucking on a fag, apparently.
Clearly.
Yeah, let's make a
We've
deal,
explained the
right?
Monty Hall problem
See,
before.
there he goes.
You don't know the Monty Hall problem with the doors and the goat and the car, Tony? We're not going to do it now.
Okay, yeah. I was just making sure it was like not some philosopher before like 1500s or something.
No. That's a modern shit.
Yeah, pick door 1, pick door 2.
See, I ran that problem to my nephews and my niece, and they all chose that it didn't really matter because either they're getting a car, which they couldn't drive anyways, or they're getting a pet goat, which would be
goat.
awesome.
I'd go with goat.
Right.
But anyways, oh my God, now I forgot what I was. What were we saying before?
Me too. I was going to say.
How knowledge changes the equation.
No.
of
Before
chance.
that, before we went down the path of Tommy. Something else. Somebody else brought something up.
Well, I think Tommy Hall has just enough. I don't know, what is it? He knows how to shoot his shit like well enough to make people that are not as smart as him go, "Wow, that guy's really smart."
Yeah, he throws out words that he doesn't know the meaning to, like chance.
And then
He
there's
loves,
a
like,
whole bunch
random
of people that eat
mutations.
it up.
Even though
Or
people have been,
epigenetics.
people have been explained to him countless, and people are asking to mute people. So I'm going to mute it, but he's not talking because there's just way too much noise in the background, and people in the outside chat are losing their hearing. But we've explained to Tommy these things. It's at that point where it's just pure willful ignorance at this point. He doesn't understand what a probability curve is. He doesn't understand what random with respect to the environment means. He doesn't understand. Look, if I have a strand of DNA and a gamma ray comes in and breaks one of the bonds, that's a random event, right? But it's not random. It's random because we can't predict it. We have no way to say this is what's going to happen at this time. That means it's random. It's all about knowledge level to us in that regard.
It's all predetermined according to B theory.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And look if you were playing craps and you knew the next roll of the dice, and according to B theory, if you can look forward ahead and you can see that it's going to be snake eyes, right? Is there any chance involved? No, because you already know. Or if you looked at the top card and you say you need to draw to inside straight, and you looked at the top card, what's now the chances? The chances is now 100% whether you are not going to do it. You now know, right? There's no chance involved because of knowledge. He doesn't seem to understand that.
Is there any decent argument for A theory?
I think the arguments for A theory is just basically arguments against B theory, but
Not really.
I don't really think there's any really good arguments for A theory of time, to be honest with you. I think they're like, the original Aristotelians and all those guys, and back in the day, they would all have been A theorists, but with general relativity or special relativity, I just don't think A theory really holds up anymore. The Minkowski space, it doesn't hold up at all.
The existence of time itself.
Well, I do think time is illusionary.
That makes no sense.
That time is illusionary? Why does it make any sense? McTaggart argues the same thing. That time is illusionary.
McTaggart argues the same thing, but there's a bit of an issue that both A theorists and B theorists have with McTaggart's argument. McTaggart's paradox against the A theorist, he says that if you describe a chain of events, you're describing B theory. So if you say, oh, that happened, this is going to happen, and this is happening now, you're already appealing to B theory.
Right.
That's begging the question. In the case when he criticizes B theory, he says that genuine objective temporal change is an intrinsic feature of time. And the B theorist says, why would it be? Like, from McTaggart, we get the ideas or the labels of A and B theory, but almost nobody accepts his paradox anymore.
No, I've read his paradox, and I agree with that. But here's the thing: if we're talking, let's talk to the frozen time scenario, right, where we talk about reductionism versus Platonism. If there is something where time literally is just a change in the universe. If there's a frozen state where the universe does not change, does time still exist? The A theorist would say yes. The B theorist would say no, correct?
The B theorist would say yes as well.
What do you say?
Because to a B theorist, like under my view, if time is just indexical, that 2 precedes 1, 2 is subsequent of 1, and 2 precedes 3. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I see.
Every individual event is frozen.
Right, but
every individual event is already ontologically static. It is frozen.
But you're indexing with respect to the people in the universe. If there's an empty time bottle, they call it the empty time.
So if there's no perceivers at all.
Right, there's no perceivers there, but there's an empty time set that's being filled. There's still time passing with outside of the universal bubble. Okay, then whatever that may be.
You couldn't say one way or the other.
But maybe does time have to be?
Would that be a Platonic realm where time is passing with the empty set, where even though your time is frozen with respect to us, in the Platonic realm, time still has some kind of movement? But we would never notice. Right? Time could have just stopped in the last second for 1 billion years. We would have never noticed. Right? The reductionist says, no, that doesn't work that way. But the Platonist would say, yeah, time could stop for an indefinite period of time.
The Platonist assumes something that seems rather unnecessary.
I don't
think if time effectively stops, or if we remove all conscious observers of time from the universe, time really has no meaning at that point anymore anyways.
Yeah, but the reason it's illusionary is if there's no motion in the universe, what would constitute time? And again, I understand that entropy, the time arrow, right? That's the direction of time. But if we're talking about...
There'd be no movement in entropy from like a God's eye perspective. But that would already be begging the question that there would be such movement. It's presupposing the falsity of B theory in order to conclude A theory.
That was a problem with Taggart's argument, though.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing with the Platonist.
See, I get that, but I still think that there's a case to be made that time is illusionary, only for the fact that if there is frozen time, the universe does exist in a temporal frozen state. That what would be mean by the passing of time? Because if there's no change, does time actually still exist at that point?
Well, if there's no genuine change.
But if that's the case, though, all time is saying is that time is just an experience between one change to another change.
Between a series of events, yeah.
Between a series of events, yes.
That time, like now, temporal terms, now, then, here, now, and stuff.
But that's illusionary.
Just indexical terms. They're not illusionary. They're indexical.
I see. I'm not seeing where you're going with that, though. I agree they're indexical. I mean, especially with B theory of time, we can actually index and say, look, here's the date, right? Today is like the 5th, right? And then we can say the past is the 4th. The past is last week, right? Those are tenseless. But the A theorist
indexical is like a place on the timeline, right?
An analogy for the 3 main theories of time would be the A theorist views the passage of time like a digital stopwatch kind of thing. The numbers are genuinely changing as we're progressing through these moments.
Sure.
To the B theorist, for them, it would almost be analogous to the points on a ruler or a meter stick or yardstick or something. Each individual point on it is an event, with one event preceding another in a linear fashion, but they all exist simultaneously with one another.
Yeah, and you have to be careful because the points you're talking about, the simultaneity, is literally points in space-time.
Yeah, but also
whatever that means, though, if you think about it, though, whatever.
To the person who ascribes to growing past, they would say that time is more analogous to somebody drawing out a tape measure. So that, yes, 1 precedes 2, 2 precedes 3, but there's more numbers being added to the sequence as the tape measure draws on.
You think the future already exists, right?
Yes.
Okay. But I mean, I can see the future existing in other places, non-localities. right? And future can exist differently to different observers in the same frame of reference even. There's a wonderful example of that, and I don't remember the actual paradox name, but maybe you can refresh my memory. But there's a paradox that's basically two people walking past each other, two pedestrians, and one of them experiences time from Andromeda, where that the leader of one of the planets in Andromeda is trying to invade the Earth, and to the other passing of time because they're walking in the other direction, the fleet has already been launched, and so what is the future? With respect to one, the future already it exists, right? That the fleet's already on its way, but to the other observer, the fleet that hasn't happened yet. It would be in his future. I can't remember the name of that paradox.
Boom, mind blown.
It's not a paradox. It's an effect of general relativity. If you're walking towards Andromeda...
he's talking about the twin paradox.
No, I'm not talking about the twin paradox.
Right?
It's completely different.
No.
Okay.
Completely different. The direction of your movement through space-time defines your simultaneity. Like what things are simultaneous to you.
Yeah,
so if you're moving towards a place, its future, if it's far enough away in space, it will be far in the future there. Well, but if you're moving away from it, it will be far in the past there. Yeah, if you turn around and walk there, their time will zip past. Okay, but it's simply because you're defining your slice through space-time by your movement.
Barney, can you turn down your volume? Your people are like blown away by your gain. It's called
he doesn't say much, but when he does,
yeah, no, he's right. But it's called the Andromeda paradox. It was Richard Penrose started arguing it, but it's also known as the Reductionism argument.
I know Putnam. Everybody loves Putnam.
Yeah, Hillary Putnam. Yeah, but if so.
Yeah, you almost bored you to sleep last time Alex Mappas brought up one of his arguments.
So if you want to look it up, it's called the Reductionism-Putnam-Penrose argument, also known as the Andromeda paradox. Very weird paradox, hard to wrap your head around.
I'll look that up.
I had to look it up. I couldn't remember what the hell it was.
And, Brian Greene has a great illustration of this in his series on the Elegant Universe with... simultaneity, the B theory of time, and how from the perspective of each observer, somebody's past is somebody else's future.
Yeah, weird, huh?
Does a great job. Yeah.
But that's exactly what it is. Great. That's why simultaneity is such an interesting concept, because I do remember one paradox called the ladder barn paradox, or the ladder paradox. Ever heard of that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting, because what does simultaneity really mean in that instance? And Lamed says I need to cut down on my drinking. Are you kidding? This is much more fun.
How else do you talk about the metaphysics of time without alcohol?
Yeah. I don't have any alcohol. I do have weed though. This is a good weed conversation.
Is this any better?
It's a little low.
Yeah, that's good. Well, in Chronicles of Narnia, you have that difference in the clicking forward of time with Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. When the kids go back, they live their entire adult lives and then come back to England, and only an hour
or something. An hour, yeah.
Yeah, not even that. I think it was an hour because the caretakers didn't even know they were gone.
That wasn't a true story, by the way. You know that, right?
I thought it was
true. Yes, it was.
I mean, I know Christian wrote it, but
no. The Chronicles of Narnia, they're right after the Proverbs in the Bible. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, I actually like
the Narnians writings. Volume 1.
I read the Screw Tape Letters back in grade school, and that was good.
Screw Tape Letters?
Yeah, Screw Tape Letters is a story that C.S. Lewis wrote.
A lot of homework to do.
About there's a war guy. I think he was in the army or something, and Beelzebub, Satan, had enlisted. I think it was Screw Tape was the demon to go get this guy's soul, and he's sending him correspondence from out in the war field about how the problems are to taking this guy's soul, and. No spoiler. Well, actually, spoilers. I mean, he ends up not being able to get the soul, and Beelzebub kind of punishes him. But it's really a great story of how, if demons existed, how they would go about, influencing people to do demonic, do evil things to get the soul. Yeah. Have you read it, Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's great is
I haven't read that in decades.
He doesn't want the Christian to think or to read or investigate. Wants to keep him preoccupied with the shallower things of life.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, he doesn't want to be a deep thinker.
Yeah.
No tree of knowledge.
I always thought the devil is a different person from the Beelzebub.
Well, I mean, I remember I thought it was Beelzebub, wasn't it, Ken?
Yeah. Well, Wormwood is mentioned in there. I read it a long time ago.
Oh God, this was decades ago for me, dude.
Yeah.
I just know I really, really liked it.
No, you guys are old. You guys are old as fuck.
Yeah.
But I also read the Chronicles of Narnia. Love that.
I'm only 5 years younger than you. I'm getting there.
Lion Witch and the Wardrobe is one of the best books ever written.
Yeah.
Is it better than The Two Towers?
Yes.
What?
Yeah, I read The Two
Really?
Towers, and I like the Gunslinger series, but
make me mad about the Two Towers.
I can't. The movie's coming out soon.
Why didn't he just ride the eagle all the way to the fucking Mordor?
Well, because of the giants. I don't know. There's actually an argument about that. That
wouldn't sell very well as a book. Would be a rather short story.
I know.
There'd be a short story. Yeah, the Lord of the Rings would be 5 pages long if they just took their damn eagles, right?
Yeah, right.
That's actually a real argument of that, Tony.
Yeah, no, I heard it.
That's sad. That was another series I've read numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, do you guys want? I mean, has the play started yet? I haven't got any confirmation that it started, so I don't know what to do. I was going to watch Ozzy talk about agnosticism on the place.
Well, this is kind of fun. We're like delving into some pretty,
I don't want to step on him, but I mean, I could watch it later. But we have like 5 people watching, so no, I don't know how many.
Really?
Well, there's more than that. I logged out, so I don't know how many people.
Well, you had like 100 and something people watching it. Just a nightmare yesterday. That was
sad.
A true railroading.
And you know what's I'm sorry. I could have done a lot better. I did well, but I could have done even better. Had a little more notification of what the topic was going to be.
Well, you milked the lulls perfectly. You milked him like you were a professional utter manipulator. I was proud of that.
Well, I got him to basically admit he was just so confused on everything. I mean, he said he studied logic, and I actually talked to Alex this morning, and I was gonna ask him because he had watched it, but I forgot to ask him. Do you think that a person who claims to know logic should at least know what a syllogism is, or at least know what a dichotomy is, or at least know?
Isn't that the basis of all where you go from? You
would think. I mean, I asked him numerous times. Okay, you want proof of something, which I believe is a Clarkian type mentality to always ask for proof, even though they don't know what that means. But
made from by Dick Clark, right? Because of the Rock and New Year's.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they don't seem to understand that things are not proven like that. I mean, it's kind of like when Tommy Hall asked for a peer review paper that the sky's blue or something, or just simple things that don't require peer review, right? We take, as knowledge that we just nobody's going to do a study whether genes contain nitrogenous bases or something. Nobody's going to do a study on that. We already know that, right? So you don't have to present a peer review paper that says, oh, look, there's nitrogenous bases in the DNA. That's the kind of shit that Tommy wants. Well, the same thing with this guy the other day. He wants proofs to exist for things that are not necessarily compatible with
that's part of their argument. They find all those little non-needed paper ideas and use that as evidence. And it makes them sound like they are professional because they said they want a peer review paper.
Yeah, well, that's logical positivism.
As long as they get those words out, then they're good. That's what they came for.
Logical positivists would say that
paper if the sky is blue.
But a logical positivist would say that nothing is true unless you can actually put a proposition that's true on it.
Well, nothing. Logical positives will say nothing is true unless it can be empirically verified. But the problem is with that is that statement itself can't be empirically verified.
Yeah, and for each proposition, the truth value is evaluated through empiricism, right?
Right. That's why logical positivism died.
Oh yeah, that was back in the Vienna.
Some people don't know, but
the Vienna conferences or something. Yeah, no, logical. You know what did evolve from logical positivism though is scientism, and I mean the actual scientism, not the type that creationists like to throw out there. There actually is something called scientism. But again,
Tom Cruise is a part of it, and no,
no, not Scientology.
Thetans, it has to do with thetans and stuff like that.
Scientism is basically trying to misapply the scientific method to places where it shouldn't be used.
Right.
Like how do you
science is great.
Method to metaethics? How would you even go about doing that?
Yeah, science is great, but it doesn't answer everything, and I think that's the problem. A lot of people think it does answer everything in life, or they get this thought that they do. You know, a lot of younger people.
If it doesn't answer it now, at least we know we can go forth and try and answer it.
No, I'm talking about there's other areas of reality that science just can't answer.
Right, and I am perfectly fine with that. I think science is great for what it does, but I've definitely realized over the last 3 years that science has limitations, and philosophy is where you would go for certain things.
What would be an example of something that can
metaphysics, metaethics, bioethics?
Okay, so quantum, all that.
Well, no, but I mean,
because you can, my bad.
We're talking about meta stuff. Like for example, the other day we're talking about morals, right? Well, okay, moral epistemology. How do we know what is moral? Science can't tell us that.
Yeah, okay.
Or moral ontological things. What is moral? Right? There's a difference. So moral ontologically would say ontology would say what is moral, but a moral epistemology would say, how do we know what is moral? Science does not address any of that stuff.
See, those are the nuances there I never knew a year and a half ago. You know, I thought just things were things, and I knew things were deeper. You know, I mean.
By the way, hang on 1 second. Crazy Jesse, you mentioned John Rawls, and by the way, it's John, I believe, isn't it? But I know his daughter, Elizabeth Rawls. I've actually asked her to come on, but she's politely refused. She doesn't want to talk about her father because she doesn't really know much about his work. But John Rawls wrote a book called Theory of Justice, and it's required reading pretty much for people that go through law school. But she's a friend of mine from Facebook that I've known for like a decade, and it's funny that he just mentioned John Rawls because he gets into a lot of this morality type stuff.
Yeah, because that whole courtroom analogy. It's frustrating.
What's frustrating?
The whole courtroom analogy.
Well, I mean, when MP tries to bring in courtroom
analogy
to things, it gets confusing because he doesn't seem to see that the way the courts do something is different than like an ontological state of being guilty or not guilty. Right? Either you committed the crime or you didn't. That's just the state, right? It's one or the other. But how the law looks at it is completely different because you can be found innocent, but that doesn't mean that you were not guilty of the crime. You could have done the crime and still be found innocent.
Yeah. Oh, I was watching the Good Zodiac Killer, the Zodiac, whatever the name of that movie is, the other night. And it was actually pretty interesting, but I didn't realize that he was never caught. So I'm like, what the hell, man? I need to know who the hell did it. But I Googled it like I do everything. I'm like, damn it. No one knows.
Yeah, it's a
Zodiac Killer is? Google doesn't know who the Zodiac Killer is?
Yeah, Google doesn't even know. You know what?
Believe that?
Back on the court and the law thing, my wife works as a paralegal, and it's kind of shocking how the truth is not really what the legal system is after. A lot of the maneuvering and playing of games it's quite disheartening to see inside the the practice itself, that field.
Yes, it's especially bad when you're actually on the receiving end of the punishment. I was in there for like eight months in jail, like fighting a case, and it's terrible, especially when you have public defenders and really their case is they have so many cases. I mean, it's ridiculous, and they're juggling. They spend like 15 minutes on you. That's it.
Yeah, that's why I'm absolutely against the death penalty. Because of our legal systems, our inability to go after the truth.
I'm pro death penalty, and I'll tell you why that on this particular reason. By the way, I've switched now. I'm not drinking coffee and whiskey; it's just straight whiskey and water. So I have reached that point. Priorities, right? Yeah, I just basically whiskey and water right now. It's really good. This Ernest Williams, it's tasty. I'm actually kind of surprised. But the death penalty, if we know for pretty much certainty that somebody committed something beyond all doubt, this guy even confessed, right? I mean, there are just some people we know committed the crime. I mean, multiple 100 people witnessed. He confessed. We have video surveillance. At that point, there's no ambiguity. And I'm like, get rid of the fucker. Just be done with it.
Why? We got a lot of pills to test.
In reality, doing the time, your life in prison is much more.
I don't want to pay for anybody. I don't.
Terrible.
I think they just be gone. That's my personal view. But I mean, I wouldn't change it to be mandatory be that way. But I just have no sympathy for those people. I just think that this need to disappear.
Well, no, they're broken human beings at that point.
Right. Yeah, especially.
I certainly get that, but
I still wouldn't kill them.
Just our socio-political situation in the United States, where blacks are more subject to be, arrested and things like that.
But that doesn't play into what I said, though. I mean.
Oh no! Yeah, that's why I said I know what
Steve is talking about, like a smoking gun case, psychopath, serial killer.
Yeah.
And by the way, it is okay to be white. Just FYI.
Sure.
Yeah. Is it though?
No, I mean I've seen it. I've been there with some of my black friends, and cops will come up and assuming that the black guy is.
You look more guilty as sin than any black guy I know.
Maybe.
Long hair hippie.
But still, man, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't look the preacher part.
I'm still deep into these sovereign citizens, man. That is a study that's just amazing. Just
Sarah's asking. So you need to raise your mic volume. By the way, I can barely hear you, and I keep stepping on you. Don't mean to. Your mic volume.
Who, me?
Really low. Yes.
No, I'm far away from the mic. Here.
All right. Then I got Kenny making weird noises, so I didn't mean to step on
It's so you can't hear him toking up. That's why he's so far.
Yeah. But Sarah said, Steve, when did Steve become alt-right? Oh, I'm alt-center. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like.
He's gonna be SJW next week.
I'm full. I'm gonna go full SJW. No, I'm like the anti-SJW, but I'm like alt-center. I don't.
Steve McRae would fit in very well in Toronto. Let's put it that way.
I think they're all idiots at this point. I really do. But I happen to like Sargon's video. I happen to like Sargon's debate that he had with that guy Thomas. I think Sargon did a really good job. I've done a very sympathetic person with these people trying to use race and trying to use diversification as a weapon, especially when it comes to intersectionality. They're using that to try to separate people, and it's just having the opposite effect that they're intending. And I find it to be absurd,
That's what happens when you've lived your life with like strict family, and then you get off into college, and then you start having your own thoughts, but you don't know how to justify your thoughts or think the proper thoughts, and you go right to dyeing your hair blue and saying whatever. I'm an SJW.
I've literally heard a white guy go up to a black guy. They got into an argument, and the white guy said, "You just hate me because I'm white."
Yeah.
So,
but people need to they don't. Sargon is he says things to get a rise out of people that people will take and of course run with it because that's upsetting, that's triggering to them. Like, for example, Sarah had pointed out, he said, I wouldn't even rape you to somebody, right? Well, the reason he says that is to show that those words don't have a negative connotation to them. It's a true statement.
Yes.
Just like I am not, it's okay to be white is a true statement.
Saying I want to rape you pretty well has a negative connotation.
Yes, but see, I mean, I wouldn't say it to a rape victim, right? Obviously, because I think, I just wouldn't. I understand the reasoning. I wouldn't use rape as an example. I mean, he takes it to an extreme that I would never go. But his reasoning is not flawed as far as what he's saying. It is true. Does it make sense?
How about the
because
how about the woman?
Go ahead.
Wait.
Go ahead, Tony.
Okay. How about the woman that she drowned or something, and an EMT saved her, did CPR on her, and then she sued him for molestation or something like that. She wanted to.
Yeah, but most of the time they'll throw those out because of what's called the Good Samaritan rule.
Of course. I mean, just the mentality of someone to be so triggered and snowflaked.
Okay, what about this? If I play football and somebody smacks my ass, is that sexual harassment? Because Bill, I know we're getting into politics now. We shouldn't, but we're Sunday show. So, but when like George Bush, wrapped his hand around whoever it was and told her an off-color joke because he's an old man and they like off-color jokes. There was no intent to harass. I mean, old people say silly things. And he said, what's your favorite magician? Well, David Copperfield. And he grabbed her butt a little bit.
Yeah.
I agree that
sounds
that's
like every
inappropriate.
grandpa. It sounds like every grandpa trying to cop a field.
Yeah, I totally agree it's inappropriate. But that literally is my grandfather would have done the same thing.
Me too.
I mean, I remember one time my grandfather, we were out somewhere and this chick was like waitress and she had like low cut, right, big boobs, and she said, "Are you getting your eyes filled?" And he's like, and he's a Kansas Southerner type guy, and he said, "Yes, ma'am, I sure am."
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Yes, ma'am, I sure am. That's the way they were. That's not. I mean, we take it as sexual harassment now, but culturally things change. That's the generation it came from.
You get to get away with things.
There are certain things that change, but the phrase "I want to rape you," I still think will never have a good connotation.
Well, that's not what he said, though. He said, "I would never rape you."
Well,
he said, "I wouldn't even rape you."
I wouldn't even rape you, right?
Okay, but still, that's still
is that a false? Is that a harmful statement?
Yes.
I mean, in a way, yes, because
no, I wouldn't rape. I wouldn't even rape you, Matt. I wouldn't rape anybody here.
Well, I would hope that you wouldn't want to rape anyone.
I wouldn't murder anybody here either. So why is that a harmful statement? Now, I wouldn't say it to a rape victim, obviously, because of empathy.
Well, I know, but how do you know that this person isn't a rape victim?
Like, that's what I just said. But okay, let's use murder, right? If I say I wouldn't even murder you, is that harmful?
Yes, if you say it to a murder victim.
No, okay, here's the thing. Okay,
I don't think they're going to care. I don't think they're going to care. Yeah.
Dave, it's just like whenever we talked about dark humor, there are sometimes whenever, that's just a fucked up statement. Now, you could tell me I'm not going to rape you, and I'm just going to be like, okay, that was fucking random. But to some people who, they take that shit seriously. Because,
I understand that, right. I believe that people can get triggered when they've had something traumatic happen to them. I totally understand that.
People that have had something traumatic happen to them have a tendency to be thick-skinned and be able to...
Yeah,
but not the SJWs. They're thin as hell.
There's a difference between telling dark humor and then just saying something that is meant to offend other people or is threatening.
Right.
Okay.
And
me saying I would want to rape you is a threatening statement. It's not dark humor. And if you think it's dark humor, you have no goddamn sense of humor.
That's not dark humor. That's outright just
It's morbid.
But again, there are some people who literally just get triggered, as you would say, just to get triggered. Like, okay, so let me give you a good example. The place that I work at, I made this joke to a buddy of mine because I've known her for a very, 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 very long time. And sometimes we'll make sexist jokes to each other, like whenever, she and I were talking about living together as friends, and I said, hey, go make me a sandwich. And she goes, why don't you get off your lazy ass and get a job?
Oh, man, I'm triggered just from hearing that.
Now listen.
I didn't know you were like that, Matt.
Well,
so, hang on. So we're sitting...
Yeah, I had no idea you were straight. Like,
He's
oh
not.
my God.
Oh,
I know he's not. That's why I made that joke.
No, so I was sitting in the diner and I made the joke with her, and some woman I didn't even know, she didn't even listen to the entire conversation. She comes up and she goes, "You should smack him in the fucking face for what you just said," and blah, blah, blah. And I looked her dead in the eye and I said, "Excuse me, are you in this conversation? Are you sitting with us at this table?" She goes, "Well, no, but that's still offensive." I'm like, okay. But again, this was not directed to you. This was directed to a 14-year-old friend that we've been together for 14 years. We have been friends for that long. We've always made these types of jokes, and you do not see her crying or offended by it. So if you
if I was her, I would have started crying. I'm like, he does this to me all the time.
Well, that's kind of
exactly. If I was her, I'd be like, he always treats me like this. I don't know what to do.
No, but like, here's the joke.
I hope to her credit, she just went, "Oh, it's fine. I left the broom out, so I deserve this."
No, like, okay, what she said was...
That'd been good, too.
She actually came to my rescue. Like, she was just like, "Okay, I don't know who the fuck you are, but he's allowed to make whatever joke towards me that he wants. This is my gay best friend." And then she heard "gay best friend," and she goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were being serious." And I was just like, "Yeah, okay."
Well, people get triggered and they're assholes about it.
That's not triggering. That's somebody white knighting.
Well,
and
exactly.
that pisses me the fuck off.
I don't know. I think
On
that's a
all
form of
levels,
triggering
on
in a
all
way.
levels.
She was definitely white knighting, but I think she was triggered by it. But I mean, like Renee a couple months ago, I was bantering with her with that same exact thing. Hey, you know what? You make great sandwiches. You know, stick what you do best because, you know, as a woman, you make great sandwiches because somebody had actually said this to her in a in a comment, and we were laughing about it, right? But through a third party, they might think that I was making a serious comment to Renee. But of course, she knows that I wasn't.
Okay, but here's the thing, like, you know, there's this thing where, like, you know, gay people make gay jokes, black people make black, and it's just a society thing. Like, the other day, you all know I'm pansexual, and I made a gay because me and my best friend are
You're
gay.
breaking up.
Can y'all hear me now? It's my microphone. I'm sorry, my microphone is shit. But like I said, okay. I said something about him being a bottom, and this guy got offended because apparently he's not gay, but he knows people that are, and we just both started laughing at him when he started cussing us out. And he goes, "What's so funny?" I'm like, "You do know that we're both gay, right?" And he goes, "Oh," and then he just walks away. Like, people...
Matt, you know what I've noticed? You tend to gather a lot of conflicts, a lot of...
No, like, here's the thing, like...
You get a lot of triggered people.
That's when you
Exactly.
just follow these people and you start demanding them explaining why they're appropriating your culture at that point.
Exactly. Like, I need to get a tuba. I need to walk around everyone who gets triggered and just start playing the song. Like, it's just retarded. Like, I'm sorry. I should probably not say that word either. Someone might get offended. Anyway. But, you know, like, it's ridiculous. Like, one of the things that made me laugh was I told somebody that I was gay, and they're like, "No, you're not. You can't be gay." I'm like, "Excuse me?"
Why would someone say that? You can't be gay. How does that even mean?
But no, like, they tried to get... They said that was okay because, you know, they were telling me my sexuality.
It's very simple. Do you like...
Yeah, if I assumed they were...
No, you're not gay. There you go.
Like, I assume that this person was... You know, like, if I assume this person was a woman, they would get up and offended, but they can assume that I'm not gay.
I'm
in
not
reality,
gay, but I have a gay
like,
friend.
when everything... Yeah. In reality, 500,000 starving Africans could give a shit.
Exactly. You know, like, no one... Like, you should...
Right, when someone comes white knighting, are you like, "Are you serious?"
Well, and that's what drives me nuts. I don't like the SJW's white knighting, and I've seen it. I've had it. I personally have lived through this, where people have jumped on the bandwagon coming after me, and then later on they realize that they had the story completely wrong.
We should make stickers, and when
you're a total homophobe, aren't you, Steve?
I am a total homophobe who I hate.
I've only known you for like what now, 6 years?
I hate gay people, straight people, blacks, whites, Asians, Americans, Europeans. I just don't like anybody. So it's okay.
Well, anybody who's not a practicing Orthodox Jew like yourself.
Yes.
Hey, let me ask you guys a question.
Right.
Let me ask you guys a question.
It's all a Jesuit construct.
Matt,
does it make me...
Matt, you need to get a mic because you're just popping over the place, and it's really like killing my ears.
Put some toilet paper around your mic.
It's not, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's like a wind pop. It's just loud banging noises.
All right, let me ask you guys this: does it make me racist if I hate everyone equally?
Yes.
Yes, technically yes. Because the reason being is if the thing with racism is that you are saying because a person is a certain race, you're saying they're inferior to you in some way, and you're holding something against them prejudice wise. If you do that,
it doesn't even have to be a hatred. It just has to be a strong and irrational aversion to that.
To that race, right?
Yeah.
No, I just hate everyone.
That would mean that you're racist against all races.
Yeah. You see, I couldn't be racist because I haven't finished hating all the white people yet. So
yeah, right. There's a hate out there. There's people that I haven't even met.
You hate everybody equally, then you're a speciesist.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm a speciesist. I hate it.
Opportunity speciesist.
Yeah, no, you're a solipsist that not only doesn't believe anybody else exists, but you hate them if they did.
Yes, I hate these imaginary people.
Yes, I hate all you
imaginary. They clutter my thoughts. I don't need these cluttered thoughts.
But here's the thing. I was talking to my best friend, and he happens to be black. And we were walking down the street, and we were just we were just being funny. We were holding hands because we're both gay. I was making the joke, "Hey man, let's scare the homophobes."
I can picture it.
Well, we know who the top is now.
I said, "Hey, let's scare the homophobes." And the place that I live at is already racist as hell. So, we're holding hands and stuff. We're just goofing around. And then the cops pull up, and they come up behind us. And the first person that gets put into handcuffs is my friend. And I said, "So you're gonna tell us why you're putting us in handcuffs?" And
why would he? What?
Hang on.
How the hell is this on topic?
What did he do?
What did he do?
Oh my god!
I'm getting there. So we walked past this thing, and apparently there was a box on fire. And the entire thing was this old ass woman called the police on us and said that he caught the box on fire.
Oh, well, then there was justification to arrest him in their eyes until they found out.
Yeah, so the cops did nothing wrong.
Hey,
yeah,
Matt,
they just assumed.
Matt, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
What's your opinion on A theory and B theory of time?
Barney.
Wait, what?
Thank you, Barney.
Barney, I love you.
Good rejoinder there.
There we go. Now we're back.
Now we're back. All right, let's get back
according to Presentism.
Yeah, let's get back on topic. This gay shit. I don't really. I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna sound weird, but I don't give a shit about gay right now. So be gay. Be
wait till you drink a bit more.
So run away with that. Steve doesn't care about gay people. That's what.
Oh God, Steve's a homophobe. Everybody, you heard it here. You heard it live.
Hey, all these thoughts and all these problems you're facing right now, and noticing them, are all going to not matter as much as time goes by.
Oh, nothing really matters. No life does.
I think it takes too much energy to be a phobe of anything that's not
For
irrational.
real.
I mean, obviously, there's
problems.
phobias that we can't help. I mean, I like arachnophobia, right? I don't like spiders.
Oh, yeah,
I wouldn't say I'm full-blown arachnophobia, but I can't help that.
I'm pretty
right?
sure the whole point of the phobia is that you can't help it.
Right, but I think you can help being
right.
homophobic. I think that people can stop being homophobic if they wanted to. I think that's. Anyways, we're moving on. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Yeah, we're kind of devolving away from the hangout and losing my entire audience, and they're not liking this topic, and I don't blame them.
Is Sarah still there? What's up, Sarah? I'm telling Sarah to come in. She's smart.
She's supposed to.
I don't know why she doesn't come in.
She's kind of been avoiding joining the hangouts lately.
She's just been sending Drag a whole bunch of money to show dick pics.
Is Sarah Max?
Yeah.
If I can come in here and spew dumb stuff, she can come and spew smart stuff.
Yeah, she super chatted me, and I didn't even have to show dick pics, so I'm better for that. Because she'd be severely disappointed.
Well, Drag made a sort of ultimatum. And she met it.
I know. Yeah, $100 for a dick pic. That's not bad. Yeah. I personally wouldn't do it, but that's just me.
She didn't just get a dick pic. She got a video out of that one.
Nice. Yeah,
I wouldn't use my dick. I'd use someone else.
Yeah, it's just not my thing.
You want a dick pic? I got a rhinoceros one.
There was a group of people who, rather cleverly a while ago, were requesting dick pics from people on Tinder. But to give a sense of scale, they asked that it be done against a credit card.
What?
Yeah, so you can see. Man, I hope it goes above the
yeah, it's all relative, right?
What the fuck? Wait, so let me get this straight. They were measuring dicks with credit cards.
Well, just to get a relative scale, so that like if all you have is a photo of someone's dick and there's no frame of reference in the photo, you don't know how big it is. So these people were saying,
That's the only way to take it.
Why don't you hold it up against your credit card and now they have your credit card number.
Oh, we have a flat earther.
What you do is you hold it up against one of those miniature Pepsi cans.
All right, guys. Flat earthers joining us.
All right.
Hey, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Why?
Hell,
So what are your thoughts on A theory or B theory?
Yeah, what's your position on A theory or B theory of time? Are you reductionist or Platonist? Take your time. Well, let's start with the basics. Hey, Sean, is the Earth round or flat? It's round.
Is the space-time around Earth?
Okay, get ready to be sniped.
We can't be sniped. This is a business.
Oh yeah,
account.
we're on that fun hangout.
This is a snipe-free zone, baby.
And it's not. And Sean does a snipe. But that is Sean. He was in the live feed. I'm a roundist, Robert says.
Oh, if you're going to make fun,
Why
he's
won't
not
you
going to join.
Oh, we always make fun of people. Come on, Sean. Come on.
Sean, that's the topic of the hangout. We
Yeah,
just
I'm
sorry. Just made fun of
You're a flat earther, and you're really whining that we're taking the piss out of you because of your position. You're not
really?
accustomed to that now?
You would think
What kind of thin-skinned little bitch are you?
Damn!
Nicola, what is your avatar, man? What is your avatar?
It's Kumamon.
Thin-skinned little bitch.
Doesn't help.
Wow.
It's a Japanese mascot for
I
a
was gonna
town
say
that became a North American sensation where they decided to take this lovable character and put it in memes that say, why? For the glory of Satan, of course.
Okay, yeah, I saw that on, last week tonight, or last week. Yeah.
Sarah had asked Steve, would you ever have a conversation with I'm a end ham? I don't know who that is, Sarah. I'll have a conversation with anybody. I don't. What am I? I mean, I've never said I won't have a conversation with somebody if they come in here. I've even allowed Darwin's deity to pop in, which he never has.
G-Man's been in here.
G-Man's been in here, but Darwin's has never been in here.
There's an open invitation to Ronnie.
Ronnie's never been in here.
Well, you debated him.
Yeah, but he's never been in here though. We didn't debate on this channel.
I guess no, you didn't debate him. You gave a presentation, and he tripped over himself.
No, Steve gave background noise while he tuned his guitar.
Yeah, I don't think Ronnie had an idea what he was in for.
No. and to make that excuse up, I mean, you couldn't have come up with a better excuse. Like, wow.
When I do a debate, I go full bore, and even though I gotta admit, I think I dumbed it down more than I should have. I really wanted to get more in depth, but even people told me it was probably too technical. But I was like,
still
really?
went over his head. It went way over his. For the way he talks and the way his jargon is manipulates people, he deserved it. He should have known all the stuff you were saying.
Oh yeah, there was nothing.
Okay,
here's the thing. He keeps talking about Pelton wheels and turbines and shit like that, right? Well, my presentation was on turbines. Did he even address a single thing that I said? Did he even understand what a Curtis stage was, or a Rateau stage, or impulse, which is reaction? No, and he's the one making arguments about turbines. You think that he would understand what a turbine is?
He didn't have to address any of that because cause and effect.
Because cause and effect. PCR is wrong. I don't subscribe to PCR. Or PSR. Sorry. Whiskey.
Ooh, the Bible thumping Wignut show is on.
Why?
We're gonna watch Ozzy soon.
That?
So is Ozzy? I thought Ozzy's. When does Ozzy start? In 5:15?
2:15. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What time? Hang on a second.
7 o'clock.
It's
7
in
o'clock.
15 minutes.
Okay. That's 7 o'clock Central Time then.
7:30 Central.
Oh,
okay, so it's 5:15 my time.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll end this in about 15 minutes because I don't want to step on Ozzy's and I want to go watch that because he's arguing about agnosticism and again I agree. I don't think everybody should be agnostic. I think
it doesn't really matter. We've gone wildly off topic as it is.
Yeah. No. I'm just saying that's what they're going to be talking about. And Dr. Jones says kind of that he thinks most people should be agnostic, and I'm like, I don't know about that. It works for me. I
Why?
don't think it works
But there's
for
an
everybody.
interesting flow to the chaos of our hangout tonight, though. It's got an interesting vibe to it.
The Sunday show's like that usually.
But
Alcohol has that effect.
Steve, when he says most people should be agnostic, and you say, I don't know about that. Aren't you an agnostic then?
Yeah, but that
about
doesn't mean I advocate that everybody else should be. I came to my position on my own. I don't think everybody else should have that position if they don't feel like that's the position for them.
Sorry about that.
People can be just as justified to be an atheist or to be a theist if they want to.
Because I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I mean, do I think that like Kenny's unjustified to be a theist? Of course not. Of course he is. He's totally justified to be a theist.
Of course,
Right?
he's
That
justified.
works for him.
He's just wrong.
Yeah, he's just outright wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Oh
I'm
God!
just testing if he's away from the mic right now. That's all I'm doing. Nope, there he is.
Did he watch that thing with Hyper Calvinist the other day? Oh
No, I'm here. I'm just actually setting my drums up. I had to take them apart, so I muted myself. I'm listening and setting up my drums.
Yeah, you said you watched that thing the other day. I mean, that whole thing with Hyper Calvinist, that's the kind of shit where I just go, you're just so wrong. You're so wrong that you're not even wrong. That's the kind of thing that I kind of
So
like.
yeah, as
You're
how
so
Walter
wrong
Martin
that you're
used to
just
say,
potato.
"You're so wrong, we can't even get a radar fix on you."
Yeah, that's just potato. I mean, there's so many things that he said that I just was like, what?
Talking about last night?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
he hadn't
weird.
formulated his position very well at all, and he did the same thing with Schuyler. When he was supposed to be arguing for objective morality, and he ended up arguing for subjective morality and not even realizing it.
Don't.
was
That
weird.
was Rodney.
That's why I say everyone should use the same damn policy I do. Don't use those fucking terms.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I took your advice, and I think it was you that told me that people should not even
Use the
word
terms generalism or particularism, anti-realism versus realism. Use those. Those are far more informative, and we don't get bogged down in arguing about whether or not what definition is reasonable about whether something is objective or subjective.
Yeah, that's why I don't like the whole objective subjective morality argument. I find it to be non-productive to say the least. Not that most of our conversation is productive. They're not, but
Eh.
Yeah,
They
but
can
one
be.
thing about Rodney is whenever he posts, he gets like 200 plus comments.
Well, his arguments are fucking stupid.
Yeah, but he sticks to them and fights for them.
oh yeah, he
And I-
does.
If morality is subjective, money doesn't have value. What?
That I didn't say they were good or smart.
Well, at least with this, like this today's Sunday show, people were exposed. They may not like be aware of these things, but at least they're exposed to things they probably never even dealt with before, and that's cool to me, right? They don't have to like know the difference between A and B.
That's why I ask all the questions I do, even though they
Well,
sound
the
stupid. I'm sure,
the
but-
sad thing about it is, I don't think we have any atheists in the room.
I doubt it.
No.
No, Darwin's is the only one I've ever ran across, and even then,
He's not an atheist, though.
But he did say he's an
His
atheist.
his A theory reduces down to B theory.
I get that. That's why we pointed it out to him. But he did when you hit actually noted to him that he doesn't even know what type of atheist he is. He didn't. And then whatever he was arguing for was B theory.
I don't know that
He's whatever Bonson is.
theorist at all.
Is it basically A theorist is tensed and B theorist is tenseless? So an A theorist would say
Not
they're-
really, no.
Well,
There's
keep it
more
simple.
nuance to it than
Well,
that.
of course there is, but I mean we've already been over it for the last 90 minutes, so I wanted to keep it simple.
The best image that I have for that is when you look at what happens in flat world if you have A theory or B theory.
Oh,
If you have A theory, flat world. You're looking at flat world from above and seeing the little squares, and you can see inside them their innards and right from the third dimension.
Well, I
In
think
B
you're
theory,
using it as a
if you
time
look at
slice
it-
analogy.
Yeah, you would be getting a 3D object of them, of their slices moving through time, and you wouldn't be able to see inside them, but you would see their past and future
But
instead.
the difference is that in the A theory of time, like for the presentist, the future and the past don't exist yet, and the B theory of time they all exist simultaneously, right? There's a simultaneity between all. It doesn't matter whether you're in the past or future or present. They're all
it's not
equally
simultaneity
from a God's eye
eye
view.
view.
You're describing.
From God's eye view. From
They all exist simultaneously.
All of reality is
like
a
the points
DVD
on a
and God's
ruler.
playing it, right?
Yeah.
So everything that's ever happened is happening, or will ever happen, is on that D&D encoded hard. And
No,
God's
it
watching
is happened.
It's already it's already happened. Well, no.
It is happened.
Because it is it has happened. It is happening, and it will happen. It doesn't really mean anything anymore. It just is.
It's just your perception.
From a God's eye perspective, everything has happened. It's all set.
Whatever
just
he wants
observing everything in a linear set. From our perspective, our individual perception is understanding an ordered series of events.
That's where I don't get where free will comes in.
How
free will gets in.
Free will doesn't really... Yeah, free will's a mess. Let's put it that way.
Even compatibilism has its problems.
Everything has its problems.
I don't even subscribe to any kind of free will thing. I don't
either.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm not a determinist. I'm not a compatibilist. I'm not a libertarian. I don't know. There's got to be a new position for people that just don't.
When you suss it out, we all have this general sort of intuitive idea that we are in charge of our own decisions, that we are causally responsible for them. And when people try to suss out what that means, they end up describing entirely opposing concepts.
So, yeah, I don't even know where to go with that because, I mean, like I said, free will to me doesn't really exist, but...
It diverges, therefore it's wrong.
It's not that it's wrong, it's just that it's something that may just well be beyond our ability to classify.
Yeah.
You would have to...
I don't believe that it exists, but I do very strongly believe that we should act as though it exists.
Oh, I agree with that.
As if you have a choice, Barney.
Yeah.
Oh, done. Kenny, you got to take off?
Oh, yeah, just a second. I was going to leave you guys with a cool little anecdote here. One of the reasons why I love Greek language. In Matthew chapter 16, where it talks about Christ giving Peter the keys of the kingdom, the Greek tense is literally a future passive perfect. It shall already have been.
Perfect.
Cool.
See, why can't G-Man know the Bible like you do? I mean, I don't get it. Why can't?
Because G-Man's a real Christian. That's why.
Because Kenny actually went to school to learn this shit.
Yeah, so it's a fascinating issue in talking about God's timelessness and B theory of time, where those tenses only the Greeks had a tense for it. When I say that
for something that's already has happened in the future.
Proverbially, they always say the Greeks knew how to say it, or the Greek language is so.
The Greeks know how to say it to where they could portray it to everyone else. Yeah.
The tenses are just really pinpoint, and I love that.
When are you going to be able to feature? When are you going to be able to debate Holy Kool-Aid?
Well, I was kind of waiting to hear from him. I'm good. In a week or so.
All right, I'll check back in a week.
Yeah, because I'm ready to do that. I've got everything organized somewhat.
I think on the 15th, Holy Kool-Aid is going to be debating a guy named Geist, something or other.
Right, Geist.
Greg Geist, yeah. On my channel. I'm hosting that.
I was going to ask you about that. What the hell is that debate about?
Oh, I don't remember what the hell they're going to be debating about. I got to relook at it.
Because I saw his Euthyphro dilemma video.
Oh, he was bad.
Yeah, I like the way that he presents it, but he really has no idea what the hell he's talking about.
How's he present it?
Well, he basically goes, Euthyphro's dilemma isn't actually a dilemma because I take the second horn of the dilemma.
Yeah, that's what I pointed out on the comment. That's exactly what I said on the video in the comment. I'm like, wait a minute. You haven't resolved the dilemma. You just chosen one horn.
Well, it's like, no, it kind of... Okay, yes, for you, it's not a dilemma because there's a clear option.
But that doesn't resolve the dilemma. It just means that to you, there's no dilemma, but that doesn't resolve the dilemma. Plus, if you choose one horn, it still has a problem because... You're saying it's God. If things have to be this way, if things are good, right, then God is obligated to do it that way because it's good. And that gets rid of some of his omnipotence.
It's not that it gets rid of some of his omnipotence. Sure. Not really. No, it's that the good is not dependent upon God. So you can't ground the good in God.
Right, because God good exists extraneous to him, right?
Yeah, so you could say, yes, God's nature is good because it perfectly exemplifies the good, and God perfectly has these properties. But then goodness is just whatever properties are the good-making properties, and you could just understand it in those terms.
But what are the good-making properties? If God commands things because they are good, where is that good coming from?
Well, if God commands something because it is good, it would, traditional divine command theorists who would accept that particular horn would say that it would come from the properties of benevolence, charity, honesty, mercy, justice.
But then
goodness supervenes directly on those properties.
Exactly. And he is those properties.
Yeah.
Then
the problem with
goodness,
I don't see a problem with that side of the horn.
Noise.
I see no issue with that. But the problem with Greatgeist's view is that he says, well, goodness is what God says is good. He takes the second horn.
Right.
And he says, well, that's somehow still objective.
Yeah, I don't think he's understanding the actual dilemma being a dilemma. I mean, you can pick a horn, but that's not resolving an actual dilemma. That's just the horn that you choose. For example,
it just means that the dilemma doesn't apply to you.
The Munchausen trilemma, I pick axiomatic. Does that mean the trilemma doesn't no longer a trilemma? Of course it still is.
Well,
I just choose a horn.
I think most of these people are Munchausen by proxy. Fuck.
Different
well,
thing.
In the case of divine command theorist views, Euthyphro's dilemma is meant to sort of suss out a definition of what goodness is and what would ground goodness.
Yeah.
And for a particular view of divine command theory, it is a dilemma. Not for every view of divine command theory.
Yep. All right. Anyways,
it seems really arrogant for someone to think that they would even know what a good is to a God they've never met. You know, I mean, like, what is that kind of good?
That's what another topic.
What is roundness to a God that you haven't met? It's still roundness.
Does even exist? Nicola, do triangles exist?
That makes sense. You're right.
Do triangles exist?
Not as a concept, no.
Yeah, I'm beginning actually to take Hogtie's view on this. That triangles don't exist. But I'm seriously.
I'm going to go into G-Man's hangout and say that and see what happens.
Well, I've already conceded, and actually I believe this all along. Blue doesn't exist. Colors don't exist. So I think the natural extension from that is geometric shapes don't exist either. And I actually
they just don't exist objectively.
Yeah, well, that's the argument, though, right? I mean, that's the whole point of it, though.
Yeah, but they're written down in a dictionary, so that means they must be.
They don't exist. They don't exist objectively, and in our reality.
They also don't exist wholly subjectively either.
Well, I mean, what would be an actual triangle? I mean, for a triangle to exist, you would have to have a perfect form.
Yep.
For a true triangle, and unless you're a Platonist, how do you have a perfect form? I mean, you're always obviously going to have something that's imperfect. That's not a true triangle, or sphere, or circle, or whatever geometric shape.
The ideal of the triangle would just be wholly conceptual on our part.
That's all it is. I can conceptualize what a true triangle would be.
And it's just that concept is consistent between minds.
Right, because we have a compact. That's what we're going to call a triangle.
Yeah. And as such, we could say that...
We gotta go. I don't want to step on Ozzy. So, anyways, guys, thanks for watching the Sunday show. This was a great hangout. I know we went all over the place. I know we started getting into like a little bit of politics and SJW stuff, which probably we shouldn't, but it's a Sunday show. We're allowed to kind of diverge a little bit. The link to go to the next hangout is going to be on the place. It's going to be hosted by Dr. Jones with Ozzy. Tell them hi from the Great Debate community, because Dr. Jones really likes the Great Debate community. He said he will be on. He's actually, I shouldn't probably say this, but they've invited me to go on the place. Stephen Hoyt has invited me to go on the place and talk to Jones and other people, but I've politely said no. I don't feel like I'm on the level, because I don't think I'm nowhere on level to be on the place. I have a lot of respect for that show.
Psi 10 was on there once.
Well, for different reasons.
Yeah, but every show needs some lulls.
Yeah, I would be way outmatched. Stephen Hoyt is a genius.
That wasn't really lulls, as it only lasted 5 minutes and he left.
But how do you know that?
Yes.
All right, so
is that Artesian logic?
Because it was revealed to me such that I know it with epistemic certainty.
But how do you know that?
All right, Barney.
Because it was revealed to me by my cat.
Have we earned your spiel, Barney? Can you do the spiel for us, please?
No, not this time.
Oh, come on.
I am not your toy thing.
That's messed up.
I let you. By the way, I found out I could possibly be Hyper Calvinist's God. So give me a little worship here. By the way, Ken, did you notice that part? Real quick before we go. The other day I'd asked, he said, you can't really know anything according to your epistemological framework. And I'm like, well, okay, I know that you're a God. And he had to think about this. He's like, well, I don't know that. I'm like, so I could be your God. It's possible. I'm like, you're not even worth having a conversation with at this point.
Yeah, that point.
Kenny, I swear to God, if I ever ask you, can I be your God? You better tell me no.
Yeah.
Straight up better tell me no.
Otherwise, we're going down the wrong.
Yeah, we're going to be so confused if you can tell me that's possible.
It's Colonel Custard, my God.
But do you see how these people argue? They get to a point where they have to argue, and it's so ridiculous. Where are you going to go from there?
Oh,
it's like 1 + 1 = purple at that point. I can't argue against that. I just don't know what the hell that means. It is.
I hate it because it gives Christianity such a bad name.
It really does. It really does. Hyper Calvinist turns people away from Christianity because people listened to him last night. 120 people watching. They all listened to him be nonsensical, completely ridiculous.
Well, just if you're looking for an intelligent, good conversation,
Steve, that's an argument at populum.
That drove me nuts. I'm like,
are you man-strawing people?
I'm like, how is that argument
popular? I am describing the opinions of 120 people. I'm not saying it's true. Right. It's just that's the opinion they all hold. You are a fucking idiot.
There you go. That's going to be the last word. Thank you guys for watching, and head over to the place.